congregation for over 50 years, and he says Christians should focus on what unites them, rather than on the issues that divide.
It's a choice of priorities for me. What is it that you value? John 3:16 has to be central to the message of the church.
Just remind me, what is John 3:16?
God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believes on him shall not perish but have eternal life. That's the gospel, the good news. Without that, you're a social club. But this is a church. Agreeing with the central message and being part of this family is more important than agreeing on all of those issues. Go back to the gospel, the good news. Start there. Maybe end there.
This episode of Assignment was presented by me, Ellie House. The producer was Alex Last.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live downtown. It's 3 minutes to 6 a.m. and it's 17 degrees. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, our high is going to be 30 degrees, end of September, a humidex of 32, lots of sunshine, and winds will be south 20, gusting to 40. And then they're going to get a bit gustier, gusting even up to 70 km a little bit later this morning. The morning show's on until 8:37 with you, and thanks for spending time with us on this Thursday, September 26th. Let's say good morning to the team. Good morning, Corey Funk. Corey's directing the show, and we'll be covering the commute on the air. Good morning, Abby Adeyemi, who's behind the controls of the program, who also will be on the air with us covering your forecasts. Good morning to Kevin Nipatebo, saying hello to you this morning with his fancy hands, waving to you on YouTube. Kev's our YouTube producer. And Heather Wells is here also with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's advocate for children and youth wants to find out if Johnson Redhead had the services he needed. The autistic nonverbal 6-year-old was found dead in Shamattawa First Nation on Sunday, last seen Wednesday at his school's breakfast program, but never made it to class. We heard yesterday from his former foster mother. Today, Manitoba's advocate, Sherry Gott, says the little boy's death is devastating and her office is looking into whether he was getting the appropriate level of care. So we'll hear more about that. Also, some of Manitoba's newest nurses say the rewards of the job outweigh the challenges. 170 Red River College graduates were welcomed to the profession yesterday, the largest class of nursing grads Red River has seen since the pandemic. We'll hear that story, among others, coming up in our first local newscast at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
We're going to have one of those grads in studio as well, so we're going to hear more about her personal journey to choose nursing and about her grad yesterday. I'm looking forward to that, so that's a little bit later in the show. Also on the program this morning, there might be no skateboarding signs up at Old Market Square, but that's about to change, at least in one spot. We'll find out why and how it's going to have some skateboarders pretty excited today, we suspect. So stay tuned. We'll learn about a new development. And in the first hour of the program, why are we seeing increased numbers of intense confrontations between people in the public, members of the public, and members of Parliament in Ottawa? We're going to look at that and what's been happening in terms of what MPs have been facing. So stay tuned. All of that and more coming up, but World Reports first.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Imagine you're sitting on a plane and someone walks up to you, points at you and says, here is when you're going to die and here's how you're going to die. What would you do next? That is the plot of the new Leon Moriarty book. She'll be here to tell you all about it.
That was my feeling, that anything can happen.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is downplaying hopes for an immediate ceasefire with Hezbollah. A 21-day pause in fighting was proposed yesterday, but overnight, airstrikes were unrelenting. Israel says it targeted 75 Hezbollah sites. The operation is continuing this morning. Hezbollah is also firing more rockets from Lebanon. Crystal Gomansing has more on the diplomatic work to avoid a full-scale war.
Chunks of cement, part of a building, cover the road entire. The southern Lebanese city was hit overnight in an Israeli airstrike. The rubble and the threat of what's next overwhelming. One young man describes living in a state of terror for the past week. Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati told the UN General Assembly yesterday his country is a victim to an enemy that is using electronic, cyber, sea, and air attacks. He called for an end to the hostilities. As France and the United States crafted a 21-day ceasefire plan backed by Canada, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, restated its support for Israel.
Even as we work to avert a broader war, we have been clear that Israel has the right to defend itself against Hezbollah's attacks.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is headed to New York. He said the attacks in Lebanon are on Hezbollah leaders and their weapons depots. And for now, he has instructed the Israeli military to continue fighting at full power. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Ukraine's president is thanking the United States for a new military aid package. It is worth more than $8 billion and includes precision-guided bombs to assist with Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities, as well as expand training for Ukrainian F-16 pilots. U.S. President Joe Biden announced the package earlier this morning. Volodymyr Zelensky visits the White House later today. Hurricane Helene is forecast to hit Florida's Gulf Coast as a Category 4 storm, and there is worry it could intensify. The powerful and large storm could make landfall tonight. As freelance reporter Jennifer Glass tells us, Helene's surge could have a catastrophic impact.
Rains from the outer bands of the massive storm began falling across Florida late Wednesday, with Hurricane Helene still in the Gulf of Mexico, hundreds of miles from landfall. It's expected to hit the Florida Panhandle Thursday evening. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
It is a fast-moving storm. It's projected to leave up to 12 inches of rainfall, and the storm surge could reach 10 to 15 feet in some areas, which is, of course, very, very significant.
Winds could be over 170 kilometers an hour. Floridians directly in the storm's path and in low-lying coastal areas have been ordered to evacuate. Schools and universities have canceled classes, and the Tampa, Tallahassee, and St. Petersburg airports are closed. Thousands of National Guard members, emergency personnel, and utility workers have all been put on standby to assist once the storm passes. Georgia is also in the path of Hurricane Helene, and its officials are preparing, says James Stallings, director of the Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency.
They have issued a state of emergency for all Georgia counties. That makes the state resources available to all local governments and entities within the storm's potential impacted area.
Helene is expected to downgrade to a tropical storm as she reaches the Tennessee-Kentucky border. Both North and South Carolina have also declared states of emergency, anticipating torrential rains and flooding. Jennifer Glass for CBC News, New Smyrna Beach, Florida.
Federal prosecutors will unveil charges against Eric Adams later today. The mayor of New York City was indicted last night. Adams released a video statement denying any wrongdoing.
I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. If I'm charged, I know I am innocent. I will request an immediate trials so the New Yorkers can hear the truth.
Federal investigations into allegations of corruption date back to Adams' mayoral campaign in 2021. Some high-level staff, including the police commissioner, have already resigned. This morning, Adams is facing calls to step down. He says he'll stay in office. For the second time this week, the House of Commons is about to debate a motion of non-confidence in the Trudeau government. Again, it is not expected to succeed, but the Bloc Québécois is making it clear that will not always be the case. It's laid out an ultimatum for the Liberals. Let's go to the CBC's Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what are the demands, and are the Liberals in a position to meet them?
This is so interesting, Marcia. Look, for the last 2 years, when a deal was in place between the Liberals and the NDP, how Bloc MPs voted was kind of moot. Now, Yves-François Blanchet is using his party's new leverage to deliver for key parts of his voting base, seniors and rural Quebec. The fundamental choice for the Liberals on the first bill, where to find the money, whether to dig the federal deficit deeper into a hole to pay for it, because giving all seniors over 65 the same top up to their old age pensions that seniors over 75 recently got, that could cost about $16 billion over the next 5 years. And the second bill is a bit more of a puzzler, really, because this block bill, which would make it illegal for Canadian trade negotiators to concede any more losses for supply-managed dairy, egg, or poultry farmers, has already passed in the House of Commons, as Trade Minister Mary Ng noted yesterday.
We've already supported that bill. Right. We supported it, and we stand up for Canada's supply-managed sector.
It's senators in the driver's seat now. Private members' bills are not prioritized in the Senate. There's no Liberal caucus in the Senate for Justin Trudeau to lean on to meet the bloc's deadline. When the Senate committee studying it met last night, several senators were not sure this bill is smart strategy, especially while the Americans have made it clear that they expect more from Canada when the revised NAFTA comes up for review in 2026. Here's Peter Harder, a senator now, but previously the top bureaucrat in charge at Global Affairs.
Are you saying that our negotiators haven't done Canada well?
No.
And are you saying that other sectors, maybe the auto sector, the steel sector, or the other agricultural sector should put up their hand and amend the Departmental Act as well?
What is strategic for the Bloc is how this bill split the Conservative caucus right down the middle, which makes it a great wedge to drive in Quebec ridings whenever the next election comes.
Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Health Canada is no longer buying COVID rapid tests, and once it runs out, there are no plans to replenish stock. But wastewater monitoring suggests high COVID activity in BC and New Brunswick. Cold and flu season is starting. As Jennifer Yoon reports, the lack of tests could make it challenging for high-risk individuals to identify why they're sick.
Probably 10 of them. That's what we were allowed to get.
Montreal pharmacist Alec Brodeur just got a coveted supply of COVID-19 rapid tests. He says this batch will probably be gone by the end of the day.
A lot of people are testing themselves more than we expect every year.
The federal government stopped supplying provinces and territories with free rapid tests in May. Ever since, pharmacists like Brodeur say they've had to scavenge to get their hands on the tests. Now, with temperatures dipping and viruses circulating, Brodeur says more and more people are asking for a kit, while the supply is getting thinner.
People do change their behaviors and decisions if they know they have an infection.
Immunologist Don Bowdish is worried about those who are most vulnerable to serious complications of COVID, who need antiviral drugs within a day or two of getting sick.
If they don't know they have COVID, they can't get the drugs that might keep them out of hospital.
Expired tests can sometimes work for a few months after the expiry date. It depends on the box. Bowdish says just watch out for false negatives. Whether it's COVID, the cold, or the flu, she says the age-old advice still stands. Stay home. An infection that's not so serious for you could land someone else in hospital. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
Canadian pop singer Shawn Mendes is playing shows again, but this time his concerts will look a little different than his last arena tour.
Help me, it's like the walls are caving in.
Back in 2022, Mendes canceled his world tour to prioritize his mental health. Now the venues are smaller, tickets are limited, and the experience is more intimate. Mendes just announced a special performance in Toronto this November. It is a one-night-only event where he will play his entire upcoming album, and not in a mega arena, at Massey Hall. The venue seats fewer than 3,000 people.
Keep telling me that it gets better. Does it ever?
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Sometimes I feel like giving up. No medicine is strong enough.
You know what? Hats off to this generation. Just hearing Shawn Mendes taking time for his mental health. Of course, we had Simone Biles, the U.S. gymnast, taking time for her mental health. What a change we're seeing. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us wherever you're listening from. Nice to have you along on CBC. This hour on the program, recent confrontations between protesters and politicians in Ottawa are raising questions about whether there's enough current protection for parliamentarians. We're going to walk through some of what's happened and where those questions have been raised. In addition, it has been 52 years since a small plane carrying students from a residential school crashed on a Winnipeg street. Everyone on board died. Yesterday, a powerful memorial took place in our community to honor those lost and to remember their stories here in Manitoba. We'll hear more about that. Stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for other stories and headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a girl from Norway House Cree Nation is healing and telling her story after being brutally attacked by a pack of dogs. 9-year-old Heavenly Monias needed stitches from her ear all the way down to her mouth. She also can't straighten one of her arms and has to travel back and forth to Winnipeg for therapy. Her grandmother says Norway House is not doing enough to keep people safe from the animals. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says Manitoba needs the tax revenue it's giving up through that gas tax holiday. The holiday now will continue until the end of the year, costing the province $340 million. Well, the think tank's Molly McCracken says the province should be spending that money on childcare, housing, and healthcare. We'll hear more from her in our next local news at 6:30.
Heather, yesterday was gorgeous.
It was.
I know people say we talk too much about the weather on the show, but to be really honest with you.
Do they say that?
Yeah, people write to me and tell me all the time we're obsessed with weather. But I got to tell you, I can't handle it. We have to talk about it this morning because, wow, it was gorgeous.
It was incredible. It was a perfect day.
I thought it was a perfect day as well.
No wind, just blue sky, so warm.
And lovely into the evening. I think that was the part that was really nice. All right, Abby, today is going to be similar, but there's some differences here, right, with the wind and such.
Yeah, the key area is going to be hot and windy day ahead. We're going to see sunny skies. Highs will definitely touch that 30 degrees, and it's going to feel warmer with a humidex factored in. Right now, it is clear in Winnipeg, 17 degrees. We're looking for some breezy, windy, hot day ahead, and that would get quite strong as we get later into the morning. It will ease in the afternoon period. Tonight, we see more clear skies, and then the winds will shift in southwest, becoming lighter. And for other regions, we're looking at an also hot and sunny day throughout the day. Currently, Thompson, the northern region, hovering near 15 degrees, while southern regions will see also mainly sunny conditions with highs in the 30s. But right now, 17 in Winnipeg. I'll just tell you, stay cool. That's what you need today because we'll be crossing that 30 for sure.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How's the commute?
Quiet so far. Haven't heard of many major issues. Bike ride this morning was quite nice and didn't need mitts or anything like that. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
6:14 a.m. is the time right now. And as I mentioned, the right to health and safety and security, of course, applies to all Canadian workplaces, and that does include Parliament Hill. Recently, though, the safety of MPs has been under scrutiny following heated incidents that have happened in Ottawa. Several MPs say they were harassed by protesters, with one member of Parliament saying he was physically pushed. Then there was NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who confronted two protesters after someone accused Singh of being corrupt. It's all resulting in stepped-up security and questions about navigating MP safety in a highly polarized environment. Laurie Turnbull is a professor of political science at Dalhousie University. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, I mean, whether it's MPs being yelled at, pushed, the intensity, it seems, of confrontation between the NDP leader and a protester, all those examples I just cited. What's your sense of these recent incidents?
It seems like this has been a really rough start to Parliament. It seems like there's a group of protesters up on the Hill that are kind of waiting for the MPs to go into the building, calling them traitors, calling them corrupt, getting up in their face. They're loud, they're intimidating. And then in some instances, this is being video recorded and then being put on the internet. I mean, it's not unusual for protesters to be on the Hill, obviously, and it's not unusual for people to be angry with MPs. But this whole, intimidation, harassment, getting up in their face, and then the videotaping is really unpleasant, unacceptable. And yeah, we can see that happening pretty much every day.
Since when? Is there a sensibility of, looking at how this has grown or why that might have happened?
There seems like there's something coordinated going on now since the fall session opened. There's some rumor that the people who are up there doing this are connected to the Conservatives, to perhaps the Freedom Convoy that was on the Hill a couple of years ago. I don't know whether this is and the use of corrupt and traitor and that kind of thing. Like, I'm not sure if there's something specific going on here or trying to get a reaction from MPs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unpleasant. Really unpleasant.
To some specifics that we do know, when the House did resume last week and the protesters showed up to air grievances at entrances to Parliament, what do we know about who those protesters are and what they represent?
Yeah, there's some videos floating around there are videos, but there are also photos of some of these people, looks like out for perhaps a drink with Conservative MP Michael Cooper. It looks like that. I think he's said, I don't have anything to do with what these people are doing on the Hill. But there's some concern that there's a kind of coordinated effort. This is not just people angry going up to the Hill with their individual grievances.
And what about in the incident involving Jagmeet Singh, where the protesters were filming as the things unfolded? How does the use of smartphones change the situation?
Sure. I mean, the use of the smartphone, we can videotape everything, put it up online. It can, gets around in minutes. I think, we can see this happen now as opposed to just read about it in the paper. Everybody can see it. There are people who might see it and think they'd like to emulate that. Yeah, that guy's yelling at an MP and giving him a hard time. Maybe I'll do that. And so I think there's a danger of that. I also think that now that we have to know that these things are being videoed. There's a risk that sometimes people are doing this for theatrical reasons. They're kind of showing off. They think, I'll make this video of my friends screaming at an MP and then put it online to get some kind of attention to yourself, which is pretty nasty. But the other thing is the MP has to think about how they're going to respond to it because everybody can see it. And so in Singh's case, he decided to really go at the person who was yelling at him. Not every MP is going to be comfortable doing that.
Now, obviously, fences can be put up. You can put more police outside of Parliament. But what else can be done to maybe disincentivize people from doing this, from violently confronting politicians?
Some people have talked about having a specific charge around, harassing and trying to intimidate an MP, because obviously they are a targeted group. There's a sense in which people are really trying to go at MPs in particular at their place of work. They're waiting for them at the, as you say, around the entrances to the Hill. But I think MPs are probably not going to want to do something like that singles themselves out. But I think this is an attitudinal issue. You can put up more fences, you can have more security, but the problem is this feeling on some people's parts that it's okay to intimidate MPs, whether it's for a political reason, for show-off reasons, for fun, if that's what your idea of fun is. That's the real problem, and that's a lot harder to fix.
Last week, or I should say earlier this week, actually, the House Speaker, Greg Fergus, called on MPs to improve their behavior. And he was pointing at what he called unacceptable questions and comments directed at each other. How much might the way that politicians treat each other and speak to each other affect the situation on the street?
Sure. I mean, if MPs are yelling at each other and calling each other names, disrespecting each other and making fun of each other and acting like it's not a big deal, well, then it's not surprising that kind of thing can carry out onto the street and become contagious. If we see MPs disrespect each other, people might not, it's easier to normalize this disrespect because you can see it on television every day. And that's not to say that MPs are responsible for other people's bad behavior, but I don't think it's unreasonable to draw a connection between the kinds of exchanges that we see as normal in politics, which are actually toxic and not acceptable. It's not unreasonable to think that could be affecting the public's attitude too.
All right. Thank you for the analysis, Laurie. Appreciate it.
Thank you too. Take care.
You too. That's Laurie Turnbull, Professor of Political Science at Dalhousie University. We did reach her this morning in Ottawa.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters, news that belongs to you. Your World Tonight, every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1, on demand on the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Sunny and windy in Winnipeg and Brandon, a little calmer with the winds up in Thompson, but also a sunny day ahead, and it's going to be hot, a high of 30 in Winnipeg. Right now it's clear, 17 degrees and calm. Brandon is clear, 11 degrees. Winds are also calm, and in Thompson it's clear and 15 with, you guessed it, really calm winds as well to start the day at least. Well, next on the show, I don't know if you noticed this on your own social media feeds, but it showed up in mine. A somber picture, black and white, of faces lost, a memorial. It has been 52 years since a small plane carrying students from a residential school crashed on a Winnipeg street. Everyone on board was killed. On June 24th, 1972, those 8 students, the faces I was talking about, were on their way home to their families in Manitoba Cree Nation. Instead, they, along with the pilot, died when the plane crashed on a vacant lot on Linwood Street. A monument has now been installed along Yellow Ribbon Greenway Trail near Silver Avenue at Linwood Street. And yesterday, there was a powerful memorial that happened there. Family, loved ones, and dignitaries attended. Manitoba Cree Nation Chief Richard Hart was one of those who was there as well. Here's some of what he had to say.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. It's very nice to see such a good crowd attend the unveiling of this monument in this beautiful location, this beautiful park. And much like Sheila said, that I welcome everybody, the dignitaries like Mayor Gillingham, Grand Chief Settee, former KTC Grand Chief and War Lake Chief Arnold Luskin, Dennis Whitebird, former AMC Grand Chief, but of course the families of all the people that were lost in this tragic event. But I'm going to try and say a few words to try and put things a little bit into the context. This is something that we have commemorated for 52 years in our community. We have never taken a break from honoring the lost youth from our community. It truly was the most devastating day in our community to lose 8 students, especially when our community was still quite small at the time and very isolated, and you can only imagine to lose 8 young people like that it was absolutely devastating to the families and to the community as a whole. It was one of the darkest days in our community's history. 8 young people excited to be going home after many months of being away at residential school, and just a plane ride away from being home. On a beautiful day like today, with the sun shining in Oxford House, as it's shining here today, family members were waiting excitedly for their loved ones to return, and the students were eager to get back to their home and their families. One of the students, Iona Wienusk, this is the daughter of Rosie Wienusk, who couldn't be here. She was an aspiring writer who wrote the following poem. And I always read this poem because it means so much to me, and it means so much to a lot of people that when they hear it. And it's titled Home. It's one of the things that she wrote while she was away at school. And it's home, my home, where the aurora borealis pulses with vitality, where the bright stars shine against the midnight blue sky, where the full moon illuminates the broad expanse of pine trees on which shrouds of sparkling snow hang, where the snowbirds rest peacefully, and where the wild animals pad softly, looking around curiously or searching for prey. This is my home. Home where the frost bites cruelly, despite the sun shining vigorously, where the dog teams race, where the skidoos glide across the ice, and narrow tracks appear, where the airplanes take off and fly against the force of the wind. This is my home. I cherish even more that land of freedom, where I found that peace of mind, that carefree feeling, that intense life and beauty, and that sweet contentment, with the knowledge that is won so dearly and reserved for me. For this is what I'm truly thankful for, the great Manitou. May we learn through his great love, strength, and wisdom to cherish our liberty and to live in peace. This is a lovely poem showing a young girl's love for her home, and it shows the writing talents of the young Iona Wienusk, and it makes you wonder what other talents or dreams did her fellow students have that were never going to be given a chance to be pursued or fulfilled. Young lives lost while going home is so very tragic. I like to state that I wish the Indian residential school system and taking children away from their homes had never taken place in the first place. Then maybe the tragedy of June 24th would never have taken place. Unfortunately, the Indian residential schools did exist. Children were apprehended and taken to faraway locations, away from family, away from home. The abuses were emotional, physical, and spiritual. Abuses undertaken on vulnerable children who had nowhere to go. Many First Nation students across Canada returned to their communities with a broken spirit that could not be healed, and that affected their families from generation to generation. Many students never returned. Many died alone while at these schools and were buried in unmarked graves. Others, like our students, died just trying to get home to where the familiar and where the family and where the feeling of safety lied.
Bunabonabee Cree Nation Chief Richard Hart speaking at a memorial yesterday in honor of community members killed in a plane crash in 1972. To read more about the story, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you may have seen the faces and the images of the students lost come across your social feeds. I want to honor them by saying their names here. Rosalie Balfour, Mary Rita Canada, Ethel Greaves, Wilkie Muskego, Margaret Robinson, Deborah Sinclair, Roy Sinclair, and Iona Wienusk, who the chief there was reading from her work. Quite a memorial yesterday. Please read more online at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Orange is not simply a color. It's an acknowledgement of truth, a shade of support, a step towards reconciliation. Join residential school survivors and allies September 30 at the Wasay Healing Center's Orange Shirt Day Walk for Survivors and Powwow, proudly sponsored by CBC. Walk starts at 11 a.m. at the Forks. Powwow is at 1 p.m. at the RBC Convention Center. Support truth. Step into reconciliation. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
We have special programming on Monday here in the morning show. There's going to be a 3-part interview that you'll hear with the father and son, both Manitobans from different generations, Gen X and right in the cusp of Millennial and Gen Z. And they were reflecting on what reconciliation means to them in their family and in Manitoba. So stay tuned. That'll be special on Monday to hear that. It is coming up to 6:30. The commute's been good this morning. Should be really nice out there. Warm day yesterday, hot day today again. 788-3093. Call Corey if you have any problems. Today's daytime high, amazing, 30. It's going to feel like 32. Coming up, we have business news. Kristalee Ramlakan is off again today. Phil DeMont will be in. We're talking about Ottawa relaxing some rules around renewing your mortgage. So we'll hear more about those changes. Also, there's a large group of economists that have come out in support of Vice President Harris's economic plan. And most economists usually, frankly, support Republican economics down south when you look at the plans leading up to U.S. elections. So we're just going to look at this in some detail. And also, of course, always through the lens of what both of the plans that are being proposed down south could mean for Canada. Right now, though, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 17 degrees and Winnipeg gets hot and windblown today. We are expecting the wind to pick up from the south by late morning, 50 gusting to 70, and our high today is 30. A grandmother in Norway House Cree Nation says the community isn't doing enough to protect people from dogs. 9-year-old Heavenly Monias was attacked by a pack of dogs last month. She needed stitches from her ear all the way down to her mouth. She also can't straighten one of her arms and has to travel back and forth to Winnipeg for therapy. Lorraine Trout is Heavenly's grandmother. She says some of the dogs responsible for the attack are still roaming free in the community.
Something has to be done in response before they attack someone or kill someone. Pretty soon they're going to kill somebody if they don't do anything about these dogs.
RCMP say there are too many dogs in the community to identify the ones responsible for the attack. Norway House Councillor Dion Clark says a bylaw for a dog registry is coming soon, and he says that will ensure owners are held accountable for their dog's actions. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says 1 in 5 Manitobans has seen no benefit from the gas tax holiday. The province announced yesterday the gas tax break will continue until the end of this year. The think tank's Molly McCracken says people on fixed incomes don't usually have a vehicle and aren't saving anything through this gas tax holiday. She says the $340 million the gas tax holiday is costing the province should be spent on housing, healthcare, and roads.
I am concerned with the persistent extension of this cut because it's an important source of revenue for Manitoba, and it's not being replaced by another source of revenue.
McCracken worries the extended gas tax holiday also makes Manitobans more dependent on fossil-fueled vehicles. Manitoba's advocate for children and youth wants to find out if Johnson Redhead had the services he needed. The autistic nonverbal 6-year-old boy was found dead in Shamattawa First Nation on Sunday. He had last been seen Wednesday at his school's breakfast program, but never made it to class. Yesterday, we heard from his former foster mother, also calling for services. Sherry Gott, the advocate for children, says the little boy's death is devastating. She says her office is gathering information to see if he was getting the appropriate level of care.
There needs to be better communication amongst service providers, and I think more education and training for those who work with young people with complex needs, and ensure that all those wraparound supports are provided for children like Johnson.
Gott says it's too soon to say whether her office will launch an investigation. Some of Manitoba's newest nursing grads say they are up for the challenge amid workforce shortages. Almost 200 Red River College Polytech grads were welcomed to the profession at a ceremony yesterday. Nadia Harb is one of them. She says too many nurses are quitting the profession.
With the burnout and with the shortage of nursing staff here, I know a lot of people are either leaving the profession completely or they're going elsewhere.
A report by the Montreal Economic Institute says the number of young nurses leaving the field has been on an upward trend. For every 100 nurses entering the profession in Manitoba, almost 30 young nurses left in 2022. A pilot program focusing on getting wheelchair-accessible vehicles to Winnipeggers in need of a ride could become permanent in the new year. A new city report calls for the Winnipeg Wheelchair Accessible Vehicle Program to be made permanent starting January 1st. Manager of Vehicles for Hire, Grant Heather, says the program is making a world of difference.
We heard from the accessible community that they would wait, 90 minutes to 2 hours or more. So to get it down to that 20 to 25-minute mark is very good. It shows a lot of the work that's gone into it, but also a lot of the work by the industry that's focused on this.
The Public Works Committee is expected to vote on the proposal to make the program permanent next week. Trading blue and gold for orange. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be outfitted in orange during tomorrow's warm-up before kickoff against Edmonton. It's part of the team's orange shirt game festivities. Thousands of fans in the sellout crowd are also expected to be wearing orange. Southern Chiefs Organization Community Ambassador Kevin Chief says it is a meaningful initiative.
What we're going to see is a lot of orange with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people standing together in solidarity to honor our survivors. Every year I've been part of this, we see more and more people wearing orange.
As for the game itself, a win will clinch a spot in the playoffs for Winnipeg. And this is more like it.
And he scores!
Nikolai Ehlers in the first period on TSN as the Jets win their first exhibition game of the season. 6-1 the score against the Oilers. Neil Pionk also scoring with a 4-point night. Adding to the tally, Kyle Connor, Colin Miller, Brad Lambert, and Adam Lowry. The Jets' next play tomorrow against the Minnesota Wild. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby, tell us how hot it's going to get.
It's going to really warm up across the province. That's what the forecast looks like. Currently, Winnipeg, we are at 17 degrees. Across board, we're seeing clear skies across the province. So that is a kind of a stat of what we will be seeing for today. It's going to be hot and windy. That's what's on the horizon. We see sunny conditions, and that would be getting to about 30 degrees, even feeling warmer with the humidity factored in. The winds will begin lightly, but then it's going to get strong this morning, becoming stronger even before easing in the afternoon period. But we'll warm up to 30 in the city. Heading west to Brandon, currently 11 degrees. The forecast for today predicts lots of sunny skies with temperatures peaking at 32. And then it's going to be breezy as you get to the noon period. That would even make it a bit muggier because it's going to be hot, and then some winds will bring it along. Moving north to Thompson, we're currently seeing 15 degrees there. Clear skies also at the moment. The forecast for today includes lots of sunny skies, and then we'll see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds by the late afternoons, and you'd warm up to 25. Further north in Churchill, temperature is currently at 12 degrees and mostly cloudy. We're expecting these cloudy conditions to clear, and then it's going to be windy. You're going to reach a high of 23. Tonight could even see more cloud cover again, and then there's a good chance of showers. Down in Dauphin, warm at 23 already. Today's forecast got lots of sunshine, shifting to a mix of sun and clouds as you get into the afternoon, along with some breezy conditions from the southwest, and temperatures expected to peak at 31, and you're already at 23. So Dauphin is already warming up. Gimli 14 and clear, heading to a high of 29. Steinbach 15, heading to a high of 30. Morris at 14, heading to a high of 30. So across board, it's going to be hot. It's going to be sunny. You just need to drink lots of water today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It's funny because in the background, of course, Corey was picking up the phone for traffic, and then when we were very quiet talking, Corey, and then all of a sudden we heard you like slam the phone down. And I'm like, something must be terrible in traffic. But I think it's just the way the phone fell out of your hand.
I'm a phone slammer. What can I say?
Are you?
I just you just gotta make sure when it's done. It's done. You just gotta announce it to the world.
I have family members who are loud phone talkers. So they'll be like literally talking to you like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I had a good day. That was great. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, hey, yeah, how's it going? And I'm like, what is going on?
I've got a few of those. The way if you never need speakerphone, you're just holding your phone out like way out from your face.
But the difference in volume is interesting. We all have our things. All right, what's up?
So that person who was calling was actually curious about, they just wanted to know what was going on Broadway because there's been lots of construction, lots of lanes closed, things like that. And actually, I just actually happened to look it up, and it actually looks like there's some of the construction in terms of at least from Broadway eastbound curb lane and median lane from Osborne to Main is actually supposed to end tomorrow. So let's hope that that's the case. But there is some more construction kind of further down between York and Assiniboine Avenue that might not wrap up until the 25th or so. So just heads up there that 25th of October. So look out for that. So it's still going to be an issue for a good chunk of the fall here. But if you see anything going on out there, if you have any other questions, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Time for business news with Phil Demont, who's here with our report this morning. Hi there, Phil.
I've got an answer for the phone issue. You just never turn it on. I literally haven't been called in 2 weeks, which might mean I have no friends or I just never pick up the phone.
You literally turn your phone off? Do you really do that?
Yeah, it's never on. People have to text me to actually get in touch with me.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, you know what? A lot of people consider texting the new phone, right? So, hey.
Yeah.
Let's talk about mortgage rules. Ottawa's relaxing some of the rules around renewing your mortgage. What are the changes?
Yeah, yesterday we were talking about reduced down payments for new homes. This is different. The Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions now will let mortgage holders dump the existing financial stress tests if they're renewing their mortgage, even if they want to switch lenders. The move should make it easier for you to get a new loan for your existing house. It also could give the banks an incentive to cut the rate that you actually have to pay. What's getting relaxed is so-called stress tests. These came in a couple of years ago to prove you could handle payments at an interest rate 2 percentage points higher than the one you were getting offered. So the bank wants to write you a 4% piece of money. You have to prove you can handle the 6% interest on that. The goal was to make sure home buyers could handle larger borrowing costs when the interest rates were so low and they were going to go up. And to a large extent, it actually worked. You still have to need to satisfy that test for your initial mortgage loan. But if you're doing a straight switch, same terms for a new mortgage, you don't have to pass the financial test anymore, even if you go to a new lender. This all starts in November, and Marcy, it makes a bunch of sense. Interest rates have basically peaked. The Bank of Canada's cut it 3 times. They'll probably cut it again before the end of the year. That means mortgage payments, maybe not if you've renewed, let's say this year, but if you're going next year, you're going to start seeing mortgage rates probably come down somewhat. And that means that your ability to worry, the government's worry that you're going to go, turn in the house because it's 2 percentage points higher than where you wrote the paper probably isn't going to happen. Government also trying to find costless ways to help homeowners who are facing higher renewal costs. So changing this rule hits that goal. It really is the banks, because now there's some competition for the existing mortgages. They don't have to go through that same stress of figuring out whether the person can pay it back, so they can maybe offer you a lower rate on your renewal.
Let's go to another story. There's a large group of economists in the United States that have come out in support of Vice President Harris's economic plan. And usually we might see, large groups of economists down south supporting Republican policies.
Yeah, exactly. It's seen as generally more free market, but there's two things at play here. The majority of Harris's 400 economists are liberal ones, quote unquote, but they basically supported Biden last time around. But more importantly, most economists just don't like Donald Trump's plan of big tariffs for imports and big subsidies for firms locating in the U.S. I'll run through them. Start with the tariffs. That's paid by the domestic consumer, whether it's the 100% tariff on electric vehicles coming from China that Canada's put in place and the U.S. has put in place, or the 35 cents per pound that Americans have paid for decades on imported sugar. It's a big problem down there. Trump's proposal, 60% tariff on goods coming from China, 10% on from goods from everywhere else, including Canada. That'll drive up U.S. prices. Also removes the incentive for domestic companies to cut costs. You basically kneecap foreign competition. Big incentives for companies to open new manufacturing plants, things like faster write-offs for new equipment. You can make some argument for this in some cases. Maybe you have an industry that doesn't exist at that point. But the counter-argument goes, if you have to keep doling out government cash to keep these companies around because that's why they're there in the first place. Look at it this way. Critics have heavily complained Ottawa's plan to subsidize new battery plants in this country. Mm-hmm. Trump's plan would be that on steroids. Economists probably aren't that keen on Harris's economic ideas. They just really hate Trump's.
Why could renting a car, to a final story here, put you at risk potentially from foreign computer hackers?
Yeah, in August, Avis got hit by a hacking attack. 300,000 customers had their information compromised. So you would think of this as people stealing your credit card information. But experts say there's another, maybe bigger cyber risk from your rental car, syncing your phone to the car's entertainment and GPS systems. Almost 60% of people who rent vehicles, I thought it would have been higher, but 60% of people do this, match your phone up with what the rental company offers. But less than half of the 60% remember to delete the data when they turn the car back in. That puts all your information from your phone at risk. Passwords, garage codes, your contacts, maybe the fact that you're a closet fan of One Direction, which I kind of am. All that could be scalped by ne'er-do-wells if they break into the car rental system. Experts say they've been trying to get rental car companies to vacuum out your data like they vacuum out your leftovers from the car. But the firms say, look, customers should do this, and the fix doesn't look that hard. You just delete your travel history from the GPS and reset the car's entertainment system to the factory settings. Trick is, you got to remember to do it.
How are the markets looking today?
Right now, pretty good. France and Germany up more than 1%, UK up as well. Chinese government says, in effect, it will keep supporting its economic recovery. So Hong Kong up 4%, Shanghai up 3.5%. Oil's down $1.90, $67.78 a barrel. Gold's up $18, $2,702 an ounce. And the Canadian dollar, it's down slightly, trading at 74.27 cents US.
All right, I'll call you in One Direction. We can go to a concert.
I'd like that.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Phil DeMont with our business news, filling in for Christelle Ramlakan today. 6:46 a.m. I cannot believe it's the end of September, and if you can't either, you won't believe the weather in the end of September. A high of 30 today, unreal. Well, let's look at whooping cough next on the show. Cases are on the rise across Canada, with some provinces breaking previous case records. Dr. Cora Constantinescu is a pediatric infectious diseases specialist. This week, she is on CBC's The Dose podcast to talk about whooping cough and why it's particularly problematic.
It's fairly contagious. It's spread through the same respiratory droplets that a lot of infectious agents are spread via, so viruses, for example. But what makes this particularly bad is that it may not be, for example, as infectious as measles, but it's infectious for a long time. So this period of infectivity can last through that whole period where people just have a cold-like presentation. So when you just have the runny nose and the fever and a bit of the cough, for a whole 3 weeks once the whooping cough stage starts. So you can imagine that there's probably a good month where you're contagious with this disease. So the reason it's spread so well is that it's highly unlikely that people who have this illness are going to stay home for a whole month. So this is why it makes it so contagious, because you've got people moving around, coughing, spreading this via these respiratory droplets. So anybody in contact with a sneeze or a cough or with the droplets on objects that they might have been spread on can then get it.
So that is infectious diseases specialist Dr. Cora Constantinescu, who was speaking on the podcast The Dose with Dr. Brian Goldman. And you can hear the full episode coming up later today online if you want to check it out. You can also catch the show on CBC Listen or anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. By the way, in case you're wondering about here in Manitoba, at the end of July, CBC Manitoba was reporting, that Long Plain First Nation postponed, you might recall, their powwow and some other events at that time to prevent whooping cough from spreading there. So we've been, it's not uncommon to have whooping cough in Manitoba, but if you want to read more about the cases here, please go online and check our stories, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Right now it's 13 minutes to 7 o'clock and it's 17 degrees in Winnipeg under a clear sky. And even though it's been pumpkin spice season, so to speak, for a couple of weeks, fall is definitely here, although it may not feel like it in Manitoba today. The team over at cbcmusic.ca has put together a 10-track ode to autumn. So it's a sweater weather playlist, but if you want to listen to it in your flip-flops, here's one of the tunes that's on it. This is Daylight Savings Time by Dizzy.
September's end is on its way, and I'm still in sandals, and it's getting hard to concentrate from all the poor decision making. And daylight savings time is nipping at my ankles. When the sun goes down at 4 o'clock, I'll miss the way it lit my whole world up. And I'll sleep it away and let the winter turn to morning. And I'll drain all the ice from the creek. And I'm frozen, but I'm coping. Go to bed if I get lonely. And I'll sleep it away. It's nearly Valentine's, and I am still in shambles, and it's getting hard to compensate for all the sick days I've been taking. And daylight savings time will throw me off my
That's Dizzy. The tune's called Daylight Savings Time. It's one of CBC Music's songs to fall in love with. Daylight Savings, by the way, November 3rd this year. And to see what other songs made the seasonal playlist, you can go to cbcmusic.ca. I'm going to have to add that one to my own playlist because in the afternoon to chill out, I always like to put on really mellow music. I like that one. Lately, I've been listening to jazz, actually, but that's new for me. But love that one. So Dizzy, cbcmusic.ca for more tunes.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. Hi, I'm Phelan Johnson. As we acknowledge the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, join me for a very special program honoring the survivors and paying tribute to the children who never made it home. Monday, September 30th at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland on CBC Radio 1 and on the Listen app.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Time right now is 6:53 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and on YouTube this morning, where you can see the beautiful sky that looks like Neapolitan ice cream, kind of a faded out vanilla color with a little bit of pink on top. We're going to have a clear day ahead, a sunny day, and a high of 30 degrees. Well, if you have been put on hold or you've waited in line, you know what a difference it can make if you have good music to listen to. So why don't we have music in healthcare settings? Mary Jane Hampton is a healthcare columnist and consultant. She spoke with CBC Radio about the evidence backing the benefits of a bit of background music while she waited for the doctor.
Why is it that healthcare facilities are just about the only indoor places I can think of where there's no background music? Then last week, I was visiting a friend in hospital whose life has revolved around music. Nearly everyone who's been in to visit is a member of the choir. When I asked if anyone had offered to arrange for some music for them to listen to, I was surprised that no one had, and more surprised still that the patient themselves didn't think to request it. There's tons of evidence behind music therapy, but only a little research into the value of playing ambient music in healthcare settings, and it generally concludes that the benefits outweigh any drawbacks. Studies show that playing calming music in hospital waiting rooms can significantly reduce anxiety and stress levels in patients waiting for medical procedures or consultations. Studies also indicate that music can create a more relaxing environment, helping to lower patients' heart rates and blood pressure while elevating mood and creating a more pleasant atmosphere. Listening to music can make waiting times feel shorter, and the essence of the research really says that it's a good thing to do. Research published in the Journal of Critical Care showed that music therapy improved heart rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure in critically ill patients. They also found that ICU patients on ventilators who listened to music reported decreased anxiety and needed fewer sedative medications. A study published in the Journal of Advanced Nursing found that patients listening to music before surgery experienced lower levels of anxiety compared to patients who didn't listen to music. And a meta-analysis in the British Journal of Surgery found that patients exposed to music after having an operation have quicker recovery times, need less pain medication, and have better outcomes. A study in the Journal of Psychiatric Research found that dementia patients who listened to music showed improved cognitive function and reduced agitated behavior, and research in neonatal care shows that playing lullabies or soft music to premature babies improves their feeding behaviors and sleeping patterns for them as well.
So much power in music. Mary Jane Hampton talking about it this morning, a consultant and a healthcare columnist. Well, we're coming up to 7 o'clock here. The latest in national and international news will be ahead on World Report. I want to mention that, of course, we're about to hear the latest in what is happening this morning between the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. So we'll get analysis of that on World Report. We had hoped to have a full interview about it this half hour in the program. We just had some technical challenges, so we apologize for that. 3 minutes now to 7 o'clock. Heather Wells joins us, though, and she's here with our local news headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. A girl from Norway House Cree Nation is healing after a brutal attack by a pack of dogs. 9-year-old Heavenly Monias needed stitches from her ear all the way down to her mouth. Her grandmother says some dogs were captured immediately after that attack, but others are still loose. And she says Norway House is not doing enough to keep people safe from the animals. We're going to hear this little girl tell her story coming up. As well, some of Manitoba's newest nurses say the rewards of the job outweigh the challenges. 170 Red River College grads were welcomed to the profession yesterday. It is the largest class of nursing graduates the school has seen since the pandemic, and we'll hear from one of the grads as well coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
17 in Winnipeg, calm. It's going to be sunny and hot today, a high of 30 with humidex 32, and the hairdryer winds are going to be blowing at you. Winds this afternoon gusting up to 70 km. Actually, late this morning, they're going to start to really pick up. The commute this morning has been pretty solid. Nothing really to report to you. So 788-3093 if you want to weigh in. Coming up after 7 o'clock on the show, I'm ahead of myself. We're going to check in with our CBC Manitoba newsroom team that's up in Poplar River First Nation this week as part of our Communities in Focus project. So we'll hear some of the stories that they've been working on in the community. In addition, in the next hour of the show, there's a new skateboarding spot that's about to open in Old Market Square. We're going to hear all about that. And Heather was just mentioning this story in the news, hearing from that 9-year-old girl who survived the dog attack this summer. We're going to hear as well in the next hour what is being done to prevent more attacks in her community and in other communities by extension where we see this happening in Manitoba. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead. I'm Marcy Marcusa with Corey Funk and Abby Adiemi and Kevin Nipatebo and Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison. All of us here on your live team on Information Radio. Thanks for being with us on CBC. Coming up, World Report at 7. It's 1 minute to.
Today on The Current.
Housing affordability is a big one for us. We're a young family, and sometimes it feels like it's hard to get ahead.
British Columbia goes to the polls in less than a month, and debate is heating up on a huge range of issues, from mental health to crime, access to doctors, to housing costs, and the carbon tax as well. How British Columbians are making up their minds, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young.
Car la situation au Liban menace d'atteindre un point de non-retour.
France's foreign minister says the situation in Lebanon is threatening to reach a point of no return. Hundreds of people have been killed by Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon this week, and Hezbollah is firing at heavily populated parts of Israel. So France and the United States are proposing a 21-day ceasefire. Canada supports it, says UN Ambassador Bob Ray.
Anything which stops fighting and gets people talking is a good idea. We need the space. We need to find the space to allow a conversation to take place where there can be more to discuss.
Still no official response from Hezbollah or Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. For now, Netanyahu has instructed the military to keep fighting at full power. The military operation is continuing this morning with dozens more airstrikes flying over the Lebanon-Israel border in both directions. New Yorkers are expecting to learn what criminal charges their mayor is facing today. Eric Adams was indicted by a grand jury. In a video statement last night, Adams denies the charges and says he will stay in office. My World Report co-host John Northcott is following the story. And John, what do we know so far?
Marcia, for the first time in history, a sitting mayor of New York City, the largest city in the U.S., facing criminal charges. A rising star in the Democratic Party, the former police captain was seen as someone who was both progressive and tough on crime. Instead, for months now, he and his inner circle have been the focus of federal investigators, including last November when the FBI brushed aside Adams' driver and security detail to go into his limo to seize his personal phone and other electronic devices. But Adams says he's been unfairly targeted.
New Yorkers know my story. They know where I come from. I have been fighting injustice my entire life. That fight has continued as your mayor.
We don't know exactly what the charges are, but the investigation began over allegations having to do with donations from Turkey for the city to approve a building near the United Nations. Donations made by a foreign government to Adams' 2021 campaign for mayor. Several others from his inner circle, including the police commissioner, have already resigned.
What does the mayor say about his political future?
Marcia, in short, Eric Adams says he's not going anywhere.
Make no mistake. You elected me to lead this city, and lead it I will. I humbly ask for your prayers and your patience as we see this through.
But even before we know the exact charges, many are already saying the embattled mayor's political career could well be over. The governor does have the power to remove him, but it's complicated. Though even before news of the indictment, he was facing a tough re-election battle next year.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Marcia.
My co-host John Northcott in studio. Rain and strong winds already bringing rough conditions to parts of Florida. Hurricane Helene is currently a Category 2 storm. It is forecast to make landfall on the Gulf Coast as a Category 4 hurricane tonight. And there are worries Helene could intensify and leave extensive damage. The governors of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas have all declared emergencies. A Japanese man considered to be the world's longest-serving death row inmate has been acquitted. 88-year-old Iwao Hakamada was convicted in 1966 of murdering 4 people. He spent 45 years on death row for the crime. But in 2014, new evidence emerged and a court ordered a retrial. Hakamada consistently maintained his innocence. He said prosecutors forced him to confess. His 91-year-old sister spent decades battling to clear her brother's name. Ontario's Education Ministry is starting an investigation into Canada's largest school board. Students from Toronto went on a field trip to a demonstration last week. They attended an organized protest pressuring the government to address mercury contamination on the Grassy Narrows First Nation. As Lisa Shing reports, there are now questions about whether that was appropriate and if the field trip endangered student safety.
There are safety considerations to be made that are not captured in the current policy.
Toronto School Board trustee Alexis Dawson on her concerns after a video surfaced of students on a field trip at a downtown protest.
How are we equipping our students for those realities on excursions?
This at an emergency meeting after the board came under pressure to explain what happened at the Grassy Narrows River Run, a protest in support of a First Nation that's been calling on the government to address the decades-long mercury contamination on their land. A video from the rally shows a person chanting and what appears to be students walking alongside protesters.
They were just more observing.
Andrea Thompson, a parent who took part in the Indigenous protest but was not involved in the school trip, says the cause is now overshadowed.
Rather than the discussion be about the issues facing the Grassy Narrows community, people are making it appear like the protest was pro-Hamas or anti-Israel, which is the furthest thing from the truth.
What happened is still to be determined, and the fact remains the Toronto School Board, like some others we looked at across the country, does not have an explicit policy for students attending protests as part of their education, something trustees hope a provincial investigation will address in the coming months. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Starting today, employers face new limits on hiring temporary foreign workers. There was major growth in the federal program during the pandemic, and in 2023, businesses were cleared to hire more than twice as many workers last year as they were 6 years ago. As the CBC's Paula DeHatchik tells us, the federal government is taking steps to rein in the program.
I think these changes make sense.
Christopher Warswick heads the economics department at Carleton University. Starting today, businesses will face new limits around how many low-wage temporary foreign workers they can hire and for how long. There will also be restrictions based on local unemployment rates and needs.
The government really, after late in the COVID pandemic, expanded the temporary foreign worker program and has been very slow to ratchet it back down.
Warswick says economists have been concerned that businesses will use the TFW program instead of raising wages to attract local workers. Still, some businesses say hiring locally doesn't always work. Mike Aitken owns El Mariachi Tacos and Churros in Mississauga, Ontario, and says the program helps him find staff with specialized cooking skills.
Without the cooks that we have, I think our doors will be closed.
The advocacy group Restaurants Canada says it generally agrees with a shift away from the temporary foreign worker program, though Vice President Max Roy says the industry is still dealing with labor shortages and wants to develop a new program to help find staff.
For us, it's a matching and training program to help newcomers, asylum claimants to join the workforce and join our industry.
The federal government says it will be watching the labor market in the months ahead and could make more adjustments to the TFW program if necessary. Paula DeHatchik, CBC News, Calgary.
A strike at some of Canada's busiest grain terminals is entering its third day. Workers at Metro Vancouver's ports walked off the job Tuesday. The union representing workers and their employers say they couldn't come to an agreement on a new contract. Now farmers are saying the strike is already hitting them hard. Aaron Collins has more.
Combines move through fields under the bright blue Alberta sky, a sign it's harvest time on the prairies.
It's just an extra stressful time of year, and then we have all these external factors.
Jeff Frost's canola crop on his sprawling farm, ready for market. But a strike at grain terminals at Metro Vancouver's ports complicates things.
If the grain isn't moving at the port, the rail lines can't put it there. That means we can't deliver it to the elevator, and we can't get paid to pay our bills.
The farmers are urging the federal government to intervene. Ottawa forced rail employees back to work last month, but Federal Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault not ready to do that yet.
Unions in this country have the right to strike. They have the right to collective bargaining. And I can tell you as a Prairie minister, as an Alberta minister, we have a bumper crop this year and we need to get it to markets.
A lingering strike at the port will cost Canadian farmers millions, and economist Michael von Massow says it could make some buyers think twice.
That reputation might be damaged and either cost us money because there's more risk involved or cost us customers.
A federal mediator met with both sides in the strike on Wednesday, negotiations being watched closely on farms and combines across the prairies. Aaron Collins, CBC News near Didsbury, Alberta.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
16 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Calm, nice day out there in Winnipeg for sure. Across the province, it's going to be really hot. This hour on the program, fisheries, community gardens, and land guardians. Those are just some of the stories that CBC's Josh Crabbe's been working on already during his week. He's up in Poplar River First Nation. We're going to check in with Josh and find out more about it. Plus, if you watch on YouTube, we're going to share some of the beautiful images from the community. Also this hour on Information Radio, there might be no skateboarding signs up at Old Market Square, but that's about to change, at least in one spot. We'll find out why and how it's got some skateboarders very excited. And to a serious story at 10 to 8, we're going to hear from a 9-year-old girl who survived a dog attack this summer, and then we'll explore what's being done to prevent more attacks in her community. To other news now in headlines with Heather Wells. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says Manitoba needs the tax revenue it's giving up through the gas tax holiday. Yesterday, we learned that holiday will continue until the end of the year, costing the province $340 million. The think tank's Molly McCracken says people on fixed incomes don't usually have a vehicle and are saving nothing through this gas tax holiday. She thinks the province should be spending more on childcare, housing, and health care. Manitoba's advocate for children and youth wants to find out if Johnson Redhead had the services he needed. The autistic, nonverbal 6-year-old boy was found dead in Shamattawa on Sunday. He had last been seen at his school's breakfast program days earlier. Yesterday, we heard from his former foster mother. Today, the children's advocate says her office is gathering information to see if he was getting the appropriate level of care. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is now 7:12 a.m. and Abby's in with the strange hot news.
Yes, on this cool day, it's going to be sunny, hot and breezy across the province. We're going to see temperatures get into highs in the 30s in most of the region. Currently, Winnipeg sitting at 16. We're expecting this hot and windy day ahead of us with sunny conditions prevailing. The winds will start off light, but then it's going to pick up as the morning progresses, and the wind is set to the high is set to reach 30 for Winnipeg, feeling even warmer with the humidity factored in before easing to breezy conditions late in the afternoon. And tonight we see more clear skies. It's going to remain breezy, while the winds will calm slightly down as we get deeper into the night, as we cool off to 10. In other regions, hovering around 15 up north, we're seeing clear conditions. Cloudy in Churchill, and down south we're seeing clear skies, and we're expecting sunny and hot with temperatures hovering near 30s.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Do you know what happened because of the forecast, actually, that you're sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Remember earlier this week when listeners went crazy calling us and writing to us about how they build community?
Yep.
And so Corey was sharing this story. Hi, Corey, by the way.
Hi.
Remember the story you were sharing, Corey, about Trish V, who was, in her neighborhood to get to know people. She started this donut day.
Yep. Yeah.
So they actually moved it to this weekend. They were going to have it later, but the forecast is so good that they're actually going to be doing it. So they sent the flyers in their neighborhood, and they're going to set up shop and serve fresh donuts, right? Yeah, we'll have to try to get out there and cover that. What a nice neighborhood story.
It's definitely going to be a sunny weekend for donuts.
Yeah.
And ice cream.
Yeah, you could add ice cream on top for sure.
Now I just want a donut.
I know. I kind of always want a donut, though.
That's true,
like
I want a donut
also. Yeah, I know. What is it about them? All right, let's get into the commute.
Yeah, there's just one thing to keep an eye out for out there, and that's on northbound Kenaston. There's actually a construction site there that just opened up today and should be done by the end of the day. But it's northbound Kenaston between Corden and Tuxedo. The curb lane is going to be closed for the majority of the day. So heads up, that includes rush hours as well. So northbound Kenaston probably going to be a bit slow going, particularly between Corden and Tuxedo. Keep left to get around that. If you see anything else going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, it has been a busy week for CBC Manitoba's team that's up in Poplar River First Nation. Earlier this week, we heard from CBC reporter Josh Crabb. He was at the airport getting ready to leave, getting ready to board the plane. This community is on the east side of Lake Winnipeg. That's about 450 kilometers north of Winnipeg, or it is 450 kilometers north of Winnipeg. It's only accessible by plane or by winter road. And of course, the team's there this week as part of our Communities in Focus project. We have reconnected with Josh for an update on the stories he's been working on this week. And I also want to tell you, listeners, that Josh has just sent us some photos. So Kevin's going to get some photos up while we're talking. If you're watching on our information radio on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel, you're going to get a treat. Good morning.
Morning.
It is looking beautiful to me based on some of the things you sent here. But to you, how's Poplar River looking this morning?
Yeah, it's really nice. There's a bit of a breeze this morning, and so that's different than the past few days. It's been really calm, but the sun is just starting to rise here to the east to my left. I'm just sitting outside of our accommodations. It's a shared home called the Poplar River Lodge, overlooking the Poplar River. So again, to my left, sun rising. To my right, it's sort of casting these beautiful pink colors in sky, and a little bit farther to my right and to the west is Lake Winnipeg. So it is another beautiful morning here, and it's just really a precious place. The land and the community are beautiful, and the people have been super welcoming to me and our colleagues up here, Nadia and Tyson.
I think there's about 1,600 people who live in Poplar River. So you've been busy there meeting folks. Can you tell us about some of the stories that you'll be working on, and what happened on day one?
Yeah, so our flight arrived Monday morning just before 9, and we got picked up at the airport and had an initial meeting with some of the council members from Poplar River First Nation, as well as community members, just to get an idea of some of the things that they wanted us to focus on and to talk about. And so from there, we followed a father and son duo, Kelly and Julius Heinmarch, for a report I'll be putting together for CBC Manitoba TV, radio, and online news. Now, they run a community garden up here in Poplar River. Kelly got into gardening because of his father. Now he's passing the torch to his son, Julius. Both men talked about how gardening helps them personally and how it helps provide fresh, nutritious, and locally grown food for the community. So, and in addition to the community gardens, there's also these home gardens that are located at people's houses that they also take care of. There's about 30 of those. So they're busy during the growing season, taking care of all these gardens and making sure that they're producing fresh vegetables. And growing conditions here are challenging. They talked about the soil and how there's a lot of clay and how they have to sort of do the best with what they've got. So it's gotten so popular that they're actually expanding the program. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that story.
Well, they seem to have a gift for the gardens, because these images that are coming, while you're talking to us on YouTube, as I mentioned, I mean, grapes and pumpkins and plentiful rows of harvest and plants. So despite the challenges, just looks like they're having a decent year at least. Now, I know you've also been out in the water a lot. We're seeing pictures of fish here and rivers and the river rather. One of your stories is about the industry on Poplar River, the fishing industry. How important is that to the community?
It's a very big part of the community. I understand there's about 30 commercial fishers in Poplar River. And they're primarily fishing for whitefish and walleye. So they go out on commercial fishing boats and go out into Lake Winnipeg, check their nets, get their catch, and bring it back to Poplar River. So we got up early Tuesday to jump on a commercial fishing vessel with Desmond Battenchuk and his crew members, Eric Behrens and Lance Hudson. They took us to their nets more than 10 kilometers out on Lake Winnipeg. The trip started in the dark, so it was almost pitch black as we were leaving. The sun was rising behind us to the east as we were heading west, so that was an interesting experience. But it turned out to be a beautiful morning as the sun rose and as we made it out to the nets, and we watched them pull up the nets and pull the fish out of the nets and put them into buckets. And so we were out on the water for about 3 hours, I would say, and then headed back into Poplar River to the fishing station, where they took the fish for transport to be sold to the Freshwater Fish Marketing Corporation. So it was interesting. The fall season here has just sort of started, and it was their first outing checking the net this season. And Poplar River does have, as I mentioned, a fishing station. It's run by the band, and it's quite the operation. We even got to meet the manager, Tom Bittern, who's 80. He's retiring after this season after working in fishing stations all over Lake Winnipeg since he was 16. So he had a lot of stories to tell.
Oh my gosh. Every time I go north, I feel lazy because I talk to people who work the land. And as you say, work in challenging conditions and work on the water and rise early, and 80 years old, finally retiring. Another story I know that you want to mention before you go this morning is about land guardians. What is a land guardian? What do they do?
Yeah, so for a bit of background, the Lands Guardian program was developed by the organization that oversees an area out here known as Pamachuan-Aka. Now, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's protected from logging, mining, and hydroelectric development. So it covers more than 29,000 square kilometers, nearly the size of Belgium, and it's made up of boreal forest, shield, and waterways, including the Poplar River. We joined Owen Bear, who is the lands guardian for Poplar River, one of 4 for the area. Each community in the area, Bloodvein, Pungassi, Little Grand Rapids, and Poplar River, has a lands guardian. So their job is to safeguard this protected area and ensure that elders' lands teachings are shared with youth. Now, Bear told us he's involved in sampling muskeg to determine the risk of forest fires to see how dry the land is, and he does bird monitoring in this traditional territory to document the population of different species. So he has just sort of started this. He's a young man and is really excited for the job and was super keen to talk to us about it. And we had a great trip up the river as they showed us a little bit about this area and took us up the rapids in a boat. And so I'm also looking forward to telling that story.
I'll tell you what, we're grateful that you made some time for us this morning. Your days have been busy and sound like you have lots to explore. What are you doing today?
Today we're going to be heading actually just across the street to Poplar River School. It's a brand new school. In fact, they just finished pouring the final bit of concrete to open the entranceway yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I should say. Now we understand students at the school will be participating in writing essays, making posters, and coloring surrounding the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, or Orange Shirt Day, on Monday, September 30th. So the school will actually be closed that day. There are other events in the community, but we're going to be speaking to students here about the significance of the day and what they're thinking about as September 30th approaches.
Well, enjoy it. I know that I had opportunity to be on Communities in Focus last fall for National Day for Truth and Rec, and walking with the children and hearing them talk about it in Fox Lake was really an amazing experience. Just lovely. So thank you very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
That is CBC reporter Josh Crabb, part of our team up in Poplar River First Nation as part of Communities in Focus. He's there all week with a team from our newsroom. You can look out for the stories Josh talked about in the weeks ahead. You can also pitch stories if you're listening. Maybe you have a story to pitch about Poplar. You can check out where else CBC Manitoba is heading as well this fall on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba/community. It's 7:23 a.m. and here's a bit of music from Ondier with All to Myself.
Don't just say you're leaving me, 'cause baby, that's the moment that I want you the most. I got the audacity to wanna sweep you off your feet before you get to the door. They say that you just don't know what you got till it's gone. And girl, that's probably one that somebody who keeps holding on, even if it's wrong. I'm a sucker for the chase, 'cause see you moving on, that's when I want you onto myself, fall for someone else. I circle back running, tell you anything that you want, 'cause my pride won't let you go. I want you all to myself, I want you all to myself. Feed me with some jealousy, yeah. That's a type that gets my heart beat up. Toxic kind of energy, yeah. Baby, what you're bringing out of me, I'm losing control. They say that you just don't know what you got till it's gone. And girl, it's probably one that somebody who keeps holding on, even if it's wrong. I'm a sucker for the chase, 'cause see you moving on, that's when I want you all to myself, fall for someone else. I circle back running, tell you anything that you want, 'cause my pride won't let you go. I want you all to myself, I want you all to myself.
China's Ondier just signed with a major record label, and the new songs are rolling out. That one's called All to Myself. It is 7:25 a.m. on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being here. Hot day ahead, a high of 30 right now. It's 16 degrees in calm in Winnipeg. Brandon, you're clear this morning. It's 10, and Thompson's clear in 15 degrees. By the way, in case you're getting up and setting into your day, it's school day number 6. Well, let's turn our attention to morning sports. Scott Reguer joins us now via Zoom. Hi there, Scott.
Hey there, Marcy.
So the Jets are hoping last night's preseason performance against Edmonton is a sign of things to come.
Yeah, for sure. Although their 6-1 win over the Oilers, Marcy, came in a contest where there wasn't exactly parity between the lineups. Edmonton dressed a group almost entirely comprised of minor league bound players, while the Jets had 15 NHL regulars in their lineup. One of those, defender Neil Pionk, managed 4 points. And there was a notable performance by goalie Capo Kakkonen as well. He had a shutout going, Marcy, until late in the third period, and in the end stopped all but one of 27 shots he faced. So Kakkonen hoping to beat out Eric Comrie for the backup gig behind Connor Hellebuck. Next up for the Jets, a game against Minnesota tomorrow, where Cole Perfetti is expected to draw into his first preseason game.
Let's go to basketball. It was a big night in the WNBA.
It was. Minnesota are through to the Final Four after they swept Phoenix last night. Nafisa Collier tied a playoff record. She had 42 points to lead the Lynx, who also feature Canadian Bridget Carlton. And in the other game, Marcy, Connecticut eliminated Indiana, which means it's an end to the uber rookie Caitlin Clark's first pro season. A college phenom, Clark's helped attract record crowds and TV ratings to the league. But she's also, through no fault of her own, attracted attention for being a young white star. Connecticut's Alyssa Thomas, who's black, says there's now more racialized language online than ever.
In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. It's unacceptable, honestly. Basketball is headed in a great direction, but we don't want fans that are going to degrade us and call us racial names. Something needs to be done, whether it's them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
This is a problem, Marcy, WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert will be expected to address. Engelbert herself came under scrutiny a few weeks ago when she likened Caitlin Clark's impact on her league to another white college proteges. That's Larry Bird's back in the 1970s NBA.
Let's finish with a bit of a less divisive story here. This one features a swimmer who's proving it is never too late to get started in sport.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. If you go to our website this morning, Marcy, you'll see a feature on Betty Brussel. She's a New Westminster, BC resident who recently set 3 world records in the pool for her age group. That age group, the 100 to 104-year-old category. She only started competing as a swimmer after her husband passed away, and she had retired from her job at the age 68, and she talked to CBC about it.
After I retired, I started to swim. I really honestly don't feel special. Very often when I come in the pool, people come up to me and they say, I thought I was too old to start, or I think I'm going to quit. I'm getting old. And then look at me and they say, well, you can do it if you want to.
According to the Canadian Community Health Survey, Marcy, only 40% of people in this country of retirement age are meeting the recommended amount of weekly exercise. And I suspect those numbers will improve just a little bit anyway. For those listening, if they go to our website and see Betty Brussel's story. Pretty inspirational.
No doubt. We've had some great stories here. People, staying in the pool into those, upper ages and then skating like into their 80s. And there's nothing like it when you hear someone. They're always inspiring. I love those stories.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. They get us all up and moving. All right. Thanks, Scott.
You bet.
There's Scott Regehr with our morning sports report. And please check out that report on Betty at the national site, as Scott mentioned. Coming up on Information Radio this morning, speaking of getting moving, there may be no skateboarding signs up at Old Market Square, but that is about to change, at least in one spot. We're going to hear how a new spot has got some skateboarders locally very excited. So we'll find out what's being developed and why. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is already 16 degrees. It's another hot day, but this time you add in a lot of wind. Our high today will be 30, and that wind is going to be gusting from 50 to 70 later this morning. A girl from Norway House Cree Nation is healing after a brutal attack by a pack of dogs. 9-year-old Heavenly Monius was out looking for her brother on the night of August 15th. She was on her way home when she says 10 dogs started chasing her.
Running away from the dogs, then getting scared, crying, and like falling down, and that's when the dogs got me and started biting me, scratching me.
Monius needed stitches from her ear all the way down to her mouth. She also can't straighten one of her arms and has to travel back and forth to Winnipeg for therapy. Her grandmother says some of the dogs were captured immediately after the attack, but others are still loose. And she says Norway House is not doing enough to keep people safe from the animals. You can hear more on this story coming up in the next half hour right here on Information Radio. You can also read this story on our website this morning, cbc.ca/Manitoba. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says Manitoba needs the tax revenue it is giving up through the gas tax holiday. The holiday, we learned yesterday, will continue until the end of the year, costing the province $340 million. The think tank's Molly McCracken says the government's vow to make life more affordable with cheaper fuel costs rings hollow for many.
Those on fixed and low incomes are less likely to own a car. And so about 20% of Manitobans do not benefit at all from the gas tax cut, the lowest income people. And the gas tax cut savings have not filtered down to, for example, bus fares.
McCracken says the province should be spending more on childcare, housing, and healthcare. She also worries the extended gas tax holiday makes Manitobans more dependent on fossil-fueled vehicles. Manitoba's advocate for children and youth wants to know more about the level of care given to Johnson Redhead. The 6-year-old was found dead in Shamattawa First Nation 4 days after failing to show up for class. He was autistic and nonverbal. Sherry Gott says her office is gathering information to see if the little boy had the services he needed.
Supports for children like Johnson are not necessarily accessible in the north due to a lack of resources. And so I think there should have been, better communication amongst service providers. There should have been funding in place to provide those resources, training and education to support his needs.
Gott says it is too soon to say whether her office will launch a full investigation. Some of Manitoba's newest nurses say the rewards of the job outweigh the challenges. 170 Red River College graduates were welcomed into the profession yesterday. Emma Ager says it's been worth it, even if she and other new nurses face the consequences of a work shortage.
I've only been working for about a month, but I've already kind of had a bit of a taste of that, and it's definitely challenging, but we all understand it, and so we're all there just to help each other out. If you have the heart for it, then you can overcome most of the challenges.
And she's talking there about the labor shortage. This is the largest class of nursing graduates Red River has seen since the pandemic. A new report calls for Winnipeg's wheelchair accessible vehicle program to become permanent in the new year. Grant Heather is the City of Winnipeg's manager of Vehicles for Hire. He says the pilot program is making a world of difference for people needing accessible rides.
Transportation is a human right, and this is something, looking at these opportunities to deliver on these type of programs.
Users set their pickup and drop-off locations and arrange for a ride from the nearest available vehicle through a mobile app, the city's website, or by phone. The Public Works Committee is expected to vote on the proposal to make that program permanent next week. Princess Auto Stadium is going to be awash in orange tomorrow. The Blue Bombers will be suiting up in orange for warm-up before kickoff against Edmonton. It's all part of the football team's orange shirt game. Southern Chiefs Organization Community Ambassador Kevin Chief says it is an important way to get out an important message.
This allows us to use the biggest platform that we have here in our province and some of the biggest platforms throughout the country to draw attention for people that this history was purposely kept from them.
Thousands are also expected to be wearing orange in the sellout crowd as well. As for the game itself, a win would clinch Winnipeg's spot in the CFL playoffs. And the Winnipeg Jets finally had their first exhibition game win of the season.
Fine pass to Pionk to the backhand, scores!
Neil Pionk in the second period on TSN as the Jets outplay the Edmonton Oilers 6-1. It was a 4-point night for Pionk. Head coach Scott Arniel.
I got a lot of time for Neil. We go back to New York, and he's a guy to me that just cares about being a Winnipeg Jet. He loves playing here.
The Jets' other goals were from Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Colin Miller, Brad Lambert, and Adam Lowry. The Jets' next play tomorrow against the Minnesota Wild. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Abby Adiemi now, who's got our regional forecast.
A breezy and warm day in the forecast across the province today. We're going to see highs ranging from 23 in the northern regions all the way to 32 down south. Winnipeg currently 16. We're staying clear skies. The sun trying to make its appearance. That would make it hot and windy. Day ahead for Winnipeg, we will get to a high of 30. Feeling even warmer with the humidity factored in. The winds will be picking up this morning, becoming breezy as you get to the afternoon period, and then clear skies tonight. Heading west to Brandon, 11 and clear also. Sun trying to make its appearance. Forecast for today, sunny skies, high 32. Breezy conditions will develop by the noon period. Moving north to Thompson, where it is 15 and also clear at this time. You look out for sunny skies with a mix of clouds later. You're going to warm up to 25 and breezy conditions this afternoon. Further north in Churchill, 13 and mostly cloudy. We're expecting windy conditions also today. Highs will be around 23. Some clouds will roll in, and we have a chance of showers in the forecast. Down in Dauphin, it is warm at 23 already. We're seeing clear skies there. Today's forecast calls for plenty of sunshine, high around 31, and with a humidex factored in, you're going to be in the mid 30s. So hydrate for folks in Dauphin. Good morning, Gimli. You are at 15 at this time. It is also clear. The sun trying to make its appearance. Today's forecast for the Pembina, for the Interlake region, calls for sunshine and a high of 29. Steinbach sitting at 15 and clear. Plenty of sunshine in the forecast today. Your high will get to 30, and with a humidex factored in, you will be in the mid 30s. Clear skies tonight, you cool off to 10. And in Morris, 14 and clear at this time. The sun also making its appearance already at that region. The forecast for the Pembina Valley region calls for plenty of sunshine. The highs would reach around 30, and it will be feeling like 33 with a humidex factored in. Clear skies also tonight to cool down to 10. So we're just going to see a hot and breezy day across board with highs mid 30s.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, the commute this morning. Have we had any calls?
No calls, but just one issue to keep an eye out for. The city has mentioned that there's a new construction site on northbound Keniston between Cordon and Tuxedo, and that's pretty much just for today. It's supposed to end this evening, but it's got the curb lane blocked off, so keep left to get around that. Probably going to slow things down on northbound Keniston between Cordon and Tuxedo. If you see anything else, though, give me a call on the commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
All right, let's talk mushrooms, because apparently you love to talk mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, Adam, Peter, Mary, Cecilia, Yan, Brad, Scott, Dion, Ken, and more. All of you are like sending us pictures of mushrooms, telling us your mushroom foraging stories, and this was all prompted from a conversation yesterday. Ariel Gordon was on the show. She's the author of Fungal, Foraging in the Urban Forest, and we had a copy of the book to give away. Well, two, but we had a caller yesterday who already won one of the books, so we have to choose another one at random, but we want to share more stories here and maybe get some more pictures up, because it was crazy to me, Corey, how many people engaged in the mushrooms. I had no idea.
I love it. I want to share the one. If you're on YouTube, you should check it out. It's a picture of Jan with her giant puffball mushroom. It's literally the size of a volleyball. And so she said she found it, and then she brought it to school where she's a teacher to show her kids. And she actually cut it up later because they're edible, she says. And she's going to make a future deep-fried puffball mushroom out of it. It's huge. It's massive. And you know what's fun about puffballs is that, like, when they get a bigger size, they're kind of meatier. But when they're small, they literally puff, and you find a little cluster of them. I was actually on a hike a few weeks ago in the Grand Beach Trails, and you find a cluster of them, and you step on them, and poof, green like puffs come out of it. It's super fun and cute.
Really?
Yeah, they're awesome. That's what they call puffballs. They literally puff out like spores.
I didn't even know that these puffball mushrooms, I'm looking at this photo on YouTube, like it is like a volleyball she's holding. I didn't even know that these really were a thing until
They're the
a couple
best.
years ago.
I was going with my 2-year-old and I was like, step on it. He's like,
Wild.
what?
So let's share some stories here that came in when we asked you for your mushroom foraging stories to try to win the book. So this one came in from Scott Erickson, and this one has an audio clue. Anybody whistling the tune? Anybody a child of the 80s like I was? Smurfs! Scott writes, I have loved mushrooms and their lore since I was a kid, hearing the stories of the Smurfs who lived in mushroom houses. And then I read the Tintin book, The Shooting Star, where giant mushrooms grew instantaneously out of an asteroid. As an adult, I took a short mushroom identification course with my son, who was a teen at the time, including a session, a brief field session. But I never quite got to the point of knowing enough of what to eat or what I found in the woods. But I would go for these walks. And after the course, I did pick a lot of mushrooms I found walking around the woods near Kenora. So thanks for writing to us, Scott. I also was obsessed with the Smurfs. I think a lot of us that would have been that vintage were, painting our faces blue at Halloween, going out with a white hat. Finally, let's read one more entry. We have time for this, Corey?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Brad Dirksen. I don't know if you saw this one coming in.
Yeah.
Brad wrote to us at win@cbc.ca, and he writes, I want to share my mushroom story, but don't try this at home, kids. I live east of Winnipeg on 80 acres of forest land, and I've always seen different kinds of mushrooms in the forest. I've been curious. I love mushrooms. A longtime work colleague of mine, a Polish guy named Joe, recently told me that he and his wife frequently go and forage for mushrooms. So I was walking in the forest. It came along a group. I made a sandwich. I brought him home. I cleaned him up, brought him home, then brought home a sandwich bag, rather. And I took all these pictures. I sent them to Joe, like, are these edible? He's like, called me. We had a big discussion. And then he said, yeah, they're edible. So I started preparing them. You know what's coming. Right, Corey? Because he said, don't try this at home. So he starts preparing them, and then all of a sudden the phone rings, and Joe is like, stop! Don't eat the mushrooms! Anyway, long story short, Brad writes to us, he did eat the mushrooms. He did not get sick, but he dodged a bullet because he was not supposed to eat those mushrooms.
Yeah, you got to be 100% certain with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got to know what you're doing. So how do you know what you're doing? Well, you read Fungal Foraging in the Urban Forest, Ariel Gordon's book. Who's won?
Yes, we picked one winner at random. That's Ken McLean. So congratulations, Ken. Yay. He sent a bunch of pictures of mushrooms on a golf course. So he always stops to take pictures on the golf course. So I don't wonder if that means he spends a lot of time in the rough or not. I don't know. So congratulations, Ken. Also, Tomas actually got an automatic win yesterday when he shared an amazing story about being offered mushrooms when he was at a football game and thinking, when he was like 15, I'm like, oh, I could just go buy mushrooms at the grocery store. Why are you offering mushrooms? Only to learn later from his dad that someone offered him magic mushrooms.
Yes, he did not accept them. All right, so those are our winners.
Yeah, we'll reach out later and you'll get your book. So congrats.
All right, thanks very much. And thanks for all the photos too. If you have, as Corey said, we have this discussion. If you were on YouTube this morning, you got to see a lot of those pics you sent in. All right, next on the program, Old Market Square is about to see some construction go down in the next couple of hours, actually. And it sort of might go against what you see in terms of some signs that are up there that warn against skateboarding in the area. But there's a new skate spot being developed. Now, it's not quite a skate park, but it's a piece of what the Exchange District Biz calls skatable furniture. Skates owner Fane Smeal told CBC's Jim Agapito how excited they are for the community.
The Exchange hasn't had a skate spot, I don't think, ever, so it's super cool to have something right at the Cube where everyone's hanging out all the time. It'll bring more livelihood to the skate community in that area, so yeah, we're super excited to get something new there.
Do you know what it will look like?
It's kind of like a bunch of obstacles put together into one. If you know what like a ledge, it'd be like a rainbow ledge that you can grind, so it's like, I think like 5 to 6 feet tall, so it's pretty tall. And then it has like a little ramp beside it as well that goes horizontal with it. And then there's a ramp that goes vertical with it. And then there's like a little curb, like one of those parking curbs. And that's like super chill for people to skate and really fun. If you don't skateboard, you probably think that's weird, but it's really fun for a lot of skateboarders just to skate a curb. But kind of just a big rainbow, which you can picture a ledge with ramps on it. It's just super cool to bring into the Exchange because the Exchange has a lot of opportunity with having a lot of people around there, which there is, but bringing skateboarders there will bring more people attraction because people are going to want to watch skateboarding. People are just hanging out, I feel like. Even if you don't skate, you will want to come and just look and see what's up.
Fane Smeal from Skate Skates talking about the new skate spot that's being built behind the Exchange. So it definitely goes against some no skateboarding signs that are there now, but we want to know what's behind this new initiative. So David Pinsanto has been patiently waiting in studio while we've been talking about mushrooms. Executive Director of the Executive Exchange District Biz. Hi there.
Hi.
So what's up? Why is this being put together?
It's like many things that we do in the Exchange District, sort of a germ of an idea that percolated for a little while, and here we are. So, a number of years ago, I was chatting with some of the people that we work with at Scatliff Miller Murray, trying to think about actually for alleyways in the Exchange, could we do something skateboarding related? What would that look like? Started thinking about those kinds of things, and they started describing how there's this sort of move. We haven't really seen it much here in Winnipeg yet, of going, maybe moving away from big skate parks and starting to do what they call skatable furniture. So it's more just like putting stuff in places that kids are allowed to skateboard on. Well, not just kids, but skaters are allowed to skateboard on. Because you see them, like Fane was saying, there's a pleasure in just skating a curb. So why not provide that?
Some people might say, don't provide that because we don't want skateboarding. How much of an attitude shift have you seen from sort of the back in the day skateboarding? We don't want to see that to, it can be cool. It's recreation. It can be also a way to get around. And obviously you're providing these opportunities. So when did you start to kind of see that shift?
Well, I think it's still a generational thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I feel like anybody kind of my generation, right? So, mid to late 40s, maybe in the mid 50s is, we all know what skaters are.
We grew up with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there's a bit of a countercultural, anti-establishment kind of a bent to it, but it's not harmful. I would say that maybe there's still some older people who don't like to hear the slap of a skateboard and the grinding of trucks, but I think that's by and large gone.
It's kind of like some graffiti as art, where it is used as art. There's still graffiti that's concerning, but skateboarding, right? The kind of counterculture sort of thinking around some of the movement. And then, all kinds of things that sort of, as you said, people that would have, even, what was the third one I was thinking of? I'm gonna forget my example. Tattoos.
Yeah.
Even rap music in some ways, where
Absolutely.
you hear
rap,
there's
punk,
things. Yeah, rap, punk, all of it.
All go together.
Yeah, and now we're middle aged, so things are changing here. Tell us a bit more about the new spot being built.
Yeah, so it's in the space behind the Cube. People might remember, actually, a lot of people don't, even though it was there until about 2017. There's a big, ugly green storage shed behind the Cube. And that was taken down, I think it was 2017. We now have these sort of three sculptural storage sheds in Bijou Park that were designed by 546 architecture. So what's been left there is sort of this big open space. You don't really notice it, and you don't notice how big it is until you start walking around back there. And that was another spot. Like I said, there's these little pieces that sort of came together. Walking around there kind of every day going, what can we do with this space? This is just dead space. And so that's where this all came together.
I'm looking at images actually on our YouTube channel this morning as well of some of the design and such. I should ask you, skateboarding has not been allowed in the square up to now. Is the reason of why now, speaking to what we were just discussing, sort of maybe a bit of a shift in the attitude around it?
I think that it's always been in the back of certainly my mind since I've been in this role, and I know others, of how we can allow skateboarding in Old Market Square. It's not. This is partly the city, of course. It's city municipal infrastructure, but the space it attracts skaters because it looks like a great skatable space. But damage can be done when there's lots of people around. It can be a little bit tense. So it's more about that. And we felt that this, again, another sort of reason for this is to provide the space. Here's a spot for them.
We're looking at sort of, and it was described a little bit there with when we heard from Fane, but we're kind of looking at it here, the design. How do you describe the design and who came up with it?
Yeah, so this was, in the end, it was designed by Nick Gammon at Scatliff Miller Murray, who's an active skater. There's a bunch of active and former skaters over at that firm. And it was really designed for maximal fun. I mean, it's, every skateboarder that we've shown these images to has been really excited about the look of it. There are some little subtle nods to things of the Exchange District's skateboarding past. So there was an event in 1986, 1987, somewhere in there called Terror in the Square, with some makeshift skateboard ramps and a dead car that skaters were jumping up on. So there's some design elements hinting at that. The rainbow arch, in addition to being a nice skatable element, is actually a nod to the old Market Square Association logo. There were some versions of the design that had that logo right on there. So that's the group that preceded the Exchange District Biz from the late 70s until the mid 80s. So yeah, it's a fitting tribute. And skateboarding culture does have a long history in the Exchange District. It's been away for a little while, but from Terror in the Square and one of an earlier version of the Edge Skate Park was on Pacific Avenue. I think a lot of skaters who grew up in that era really do think of the Exchange District as another home.
When's the spot going to be open to the public? And I know you've got a special event for Nuit Blanche coming up, right?
Yeah, so it's being put in place today, just around 1 o'clock. It's being carted in and lifted. It's a big, heavy cement structure, so it's being lifted in with hoists. And I guess it'll be skatable almost right away. But yeah, we're doing a grand opening with skates on Nuit Blanche, and that'll be a lot of fun to see some people that are a little more pro testing it out.
Have you tested it out? Do you skate?
No, I do not skate.
I do not skate either. Just watch it from afar.
I've got friends who skate. But no.
Really cool to hear about it, David. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
David Pensanto is the Executive Director of the Exchange District Biz. So the new skate spot will be unveiled, as you heard, during Nuit Blanche, Saturday night. But it's being installed today. If you're around that area in the Exchange, you'll notice that. And the demo from Skate Skates is from 6 to 7 o'clock, by the way, on Saturday night.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We're just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
16 degrees in Winnipeg. It's clear. Today's high is 30 degrees. Well, to serious matters now. Let's talk more about a story that's in the news today and a warning that it has disturbing content. A 9-year-old girl is living with physical and emotional scars after a dog attack in Norway House Cree Nation this summer. In August, Heavenly Monius was attacked by a pack of 10 dogs. They bit her face, her chest, and her arm. She was flown here to Winnipeg. As you heard in the news, or may have heard, she needed stitches from her ear to her mouth and is still wearing a cast on her arm. Heavenly has since returned home to Norway House after the attack. Here she is describing to CBC's Austin Shebakiget how she felt going home for the first time.
I was so scared. So I went to go stay with my nan. Then I was I feel so safe around her. Every time when she sees dogs, she will chase them away. And or hit them.
Lorraine Trout is Heavenly's grandmother and says more needs to be done to deal with dogs in Norway House.
Well, I'm so disappointed on the band. There's still lots of dogs running around. They only did something the night when she got attacked and the day after that. And that's it, and nothing's been done about those dogs. And there's lots of dogs running around, and a few people got bit more by those dogs that's hang around in Rossville, anywhere. Even they'll tie up their dogs and then they'll let them loose again. There's pit bulls. It's not safe for kids to walk around or anybody. And what else there? My granddaughter, her older sister, almost got attacked by those dogs again. Some of those dogs that attacked her. She was coming from the wake. This was about a week ago, a week and a half maybe. Lucky those guys seen my granddaughter yelling. They went after that dog. Those dogs chased them away. And I got really pissed off. How come they're not doing anything about it?
That was Lorraine Trout. Her 9-year-old granddaughter, as you heard, was a victim of a dog attack in Norway House Cree Nation in August. Now, the RCMP say that no charges have been laid following the attack on Heavenly, since none of the owners of the dogs have been identified. Dion Clark is a Norway House band counsellor and says a new bylaw to ensure all dogs in the community are leashed and registered could come into effect in the coming days.
Oh yes, we're ready, just about ready to implement it now. We've already started recruiting and developing the registry, the dog registry.
Okay, so you've come up with like penalties?
Yes.
What would those look like?
There's fines, there's penalties. They start from anywhere from $25 from first offense to into the hundreds. And once we're able to identify which dogs are dangerous, then we can start laying penalties on the dog owners. So that's the part that's been very difficult, is trying to find who owns which dog. And at the same time, we'll be able to identify which dog is actually a stray dog, an abandoned dog, so we can start capturing them and sending them off to rescues. But until that registry is put in place, we're kind of stuck in this situation.
When would you see that bylaw being coming into effect?
Well, we've been working on it since spring. All the leadership already have signed on and signed it off already. We are going to make our announcement probably in the next week or two and start implementing it right away. It's just a matter of maybe by next week we'll start implementing and registering the dogs. It could be days away now.
That's Dion Clark in a conversation with CBC's Austin Shebekigit. For more on the story, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather Wells is in with other news updates. Good morning.
Good morning. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says Manitoba needs the tax revenue it is giving up through the gas tax holiday. The holiday is going to continue now until the end of the year, costing the province $340 million. The think tank's Molly McCracken says people on fixed incomes don't usually have a vehicle and are saving nothing. And transportation is a human right. That from the City of Winnipeg's manager of Vehicles for Hire. A new report calls for Winnipeg's wheelchair accessible vehicle program to become permanent in the new year. Grant Heather says that pilot program is making a world of difference for people who need accessible rides. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
16 degrees in Winnipeg on this calm, unusually hot day that we're going to have ahead here. So 16 and clear now. The high today, 30 with humidex 32. It will be windy, though. I suspect it'll be warm wind given the temperature, but winds will gust from the south, 40 increasing to even 70 by late this morning. So you're going to notice that. Clear into tonight, still windy and a low down to 10, but tomorrow sunny and a return to daytime highs around 23, which is still, by the way, above normal, but not like the 30 we're going to see today. The commute's been pretty good, according to the quiet commuter line, but if you do see a problem, please call us, 788-3093. Coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, one of the 170 plus nurses who graduated from Red River College last night is going to join me in studio to talk more about how it felt to be officially become a nurse and what prompted her to want to do that in this province. So stay tuned for that interview. Right now it is 1 minute to 8 o'clock on World Report. The latest in national and international news is coming up next.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Imagine you're sitting on a plane and someone walks up to you, points at you and says, here is when you're going to die and here's how you're going to die. What would you do next? That is the plot of the new Leon Moriarty book. She'll be here to tell you all about it.
That was my feeling, that anything can happen.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdelmahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
British Columbia goes to the polls in less than a month, and debate is heating up on a huge range of issues, from mental health to crime, access to doctors to housing costs and the carbon tax as well. How British Columbians are making up their minds, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Right now, Israel's military says it is carrying out precise strikes on Beirut. Its war with Hezbollah continued through the night and into this morning. Dozens of missiles have been fired over the Israel-Lebanon border in both directions. But there is a diplomatic push to reach an immediate 21-day ceasefire. Christelle Gomansing has the details in London.
Chunks of cement, part of a building, cover the road entire. The southern Lebanese city was hit overnight in an Israeli airstrike. The rubble and the threat of what's next, overwhelming. Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati told the UN General Assembly yesterday his country is a victim to an enemy that's using electronic, cyber, sea, and air attacks. He called for an end to the hostilities. Last night, France and the United States crafted a 21-day ceasefire plan backed by Canada and other allies. Hezbollah and Israel have yet to formally respond. But the proposal does not have much support in northern Israel, where community leaders say it would leave them open to future attacks by Hezbollah. For now, Israel's military is instructed to continue its fight with full strength. But with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on his way to address the United Nations in New York, diplomatic efforts continue. Bob Ray is Canada's ambassador to the UN.
I do think we have to keep pressing for the solution on Gaza, which will then, I think, create a possibility of a ceasefire in the north.
With a diplomatic exit route on the table, the direction will be determined by the Iranian proxy, Hezbollah, and Israel. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
Ukraine's president is thanking the United States for a new military aid package. It is worth more than $8 billion, and it includes precision-guided bombs to assist with Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities, as well as expand training for Ukrainian F-16 pilots. U.S. President Joe Biden announced the package earlier this morning. Volodymyr Zelensky visits the White House later today. Federal prosecutors will unveil charges against Eric Adams later. The mayor of New York City was indicted last night. Adams released a video statement denying any wrongdoing.
I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. If I'm charged, I know I am innocent. I will request an immediate trials so the New Yorkers can hear the truth.
Federal investigations into allegations of corruption date back to Adams' mayoral campaign in 2021. Some high-level staff, including the police commissioner, have already resigned. This morning, Adams is facing calls to step down. He says he will stay in office. In Florida, rain and strong winds already bringing rough conditions to parts of the state. Hurricane Helene is currently a Category 2 storm. It is forecast to make landfall on the Gulf Coast as a Category 4 hurricane tonight. And there are worries Helene could intensify and leave extensive damage. The governors of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas have all declared emergencies. Canada will announce a new climate target in December, and the country's top climate advisors say so far this government has not been ambitious enough. David Thurton reports.
You know, Canada is one of the highest emitting countries in the world. We are a top 10 emitter of greenhouse gases per person, but also in total. And we have to think about that.
Climate scientist Simon Donner says because we are a big polluter, Canada's climate commitment should be big as well. Donner co-chairs the Net Zero Advisory Body, making him and his group some of the country's top climate advisors. The government has asked him to recommend what our new 2035 target should be. That goal will be announced before the end of this year. Donner is recommending Canada commit to reducing its emissions by as much as 55% by 2035, from the current target of 45%. The new goal would bring Canada in line with the U.S. and other Western countries, according to Donner.
50 to 55% falls out as a very reasonable target range. It also works out that not quite match, but at least come close to the ambition we're seeing from our major trading partners and allies.
Environment and Climate Change Minister Stephen Guilbeault has received those recommendations, but Guilbeault is downplaying expectations.
Well, it needs to be ambitious, but we also need to be able to have some understanding of how we get there. I'm not a big fan of setting targets where we have no idea how we will get there.
Guilbeault says his office is still figuring out the right balance. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
For the second time this week, the House of Commons is about to debate a motion of non-confidence in the Trudeau government. Again, it is not expected to succeed, but the Bloc Québécois is making it clear that will not always be the case. It has laid out an ultimatum for the Liberals. Let's go to the CBC's Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what are the demands and what are the Liberals and the position in? Are they in a position to meet them?
This is so interesting, Marcia. Look, for the last 2 years, when a deal was in place between the Liberals and the NDP, how Bloc MPs voted was kind of moot. Now, Yves-François Blanchet is using his party's new leverage to deliver for key parts of his voting base, seniors and rural Quebec. The fundamental choice for the Liberals on the first bill, where to find the money, whether to dig the federal deficit deeper into a hole to pay for it, because giving all seniors over 65 the same top up to their old age pensions that seniors over 75 recently got, that could cost about $16 billion over the next 5 years. And the second bill is a bit more of a puzzler, really, because this bloc bill, which would make it illegal for Canadian trade negotiators to concede any more losses for supply-managed dairy, egg, or poultry farmers, has already passed in the House of Commons, as Trade Minister Mary Ng noted yesterday.
We've already supported that bill. Right. We've supported it. We stand up for Canada's supply-managed sector.
It's senators in the driver's seat now. Private members' bills are not prioritized in the Senate. There's no Liberal caucus in the Senate for Justin Trudeau to lean on to meet the Bloc's deadline. When the Senate committee studying it met last night, several senators were not sure this bill is smart strategy, especially while the Americans have made it clear that they expect more from Canada when the revised NAFTA comes up for review in 2026. Here's Peter Harder, a senator now, but previously the top bureaucrat in charge at Global Affairs.
Are you saying that our negotiators haven't done Canada well?
No.
And are you saying that other sectors, maybe the auto sector, the steel sector, or the other agricultural sector should put up their hand and amend the Departmental Act as well?
What is strategic for the Bloc is how this bill split the Conservative caucus right down the middle, which makes it a great wedge to drive in Quebec ridings whenever the next election comes.
Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Health Canada is no longer buying COVID rapid tests, and once it runs out, there are no plans to replenish stock. But wastewater monitoring suggests high COVID activity in BC and New Brunswick. Cold and flu season is starting, and as Jennifer Yoon reports, the lack of tests could make it challenging for high-risk individuals to identify why they're sick.
Probably 10 of them. That's what we were allowed to get.
Montreal pharmacist Alec Brodeur just got a coveted supply of COVID-19 rapid tests. He says this batch will probably be gone by the end of the day.
A lot of people are testing themselves more than we expect every year.
The federal government stopped supplying provinces and territories with free rapid tests in May. Ever since, pharmacists like Brodeur say they've had to scavenge to get their hands on the tests. Now, with temperatures dipping and viruses circulating, Brodeur says more and more people are asking for a kit, while the supply is getting thinner.
People do change their behaviors and decisions if they know they have an infection.
Immunologist Dawn Bowdish is worried about those who are most vulnerable to serious complications of COVID, who need antiviral drugs within a day or two of getting sick.
If they don't know they have COVID, they can't get the drugs that might keep them out of hospital.
Expired tests can sometimes work for a few months after the expiry date. It depends on the box. Bowdish says just watch out for false negatives. Whether it's COVID, the cold, or the flu, she says the age-old advice still stands. Stay home. An infection that's not so serious for you could land someone else in hospital. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. And you can listen to us live every morning on the CBC News app. Just tap on the local icon. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg, and what a morning. It is clear like yesterday. It's going to be even hotter, if you can imagine that. Wow, right? End of September. Abby's in with our forecast in a moment. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app or on YouTube this morning. Thanks for being with us. It's 15 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. Coming up, Manitoba's healthcare system is about to get a huge boost. 170 new nurses graduated from Red River's nursing program yesterday. We have one of the new grads in studio to talk more about why she wanted to go into nursing, so stay tuned for that. Also, the latest weather traffic to get you through your morning, and headlines coming up in a moment with Heather Wells. Heather, what is making news?
Good morning. Well, a new study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives finds 1 in 4 Manitobans do not make a living wage. The study found close to 25%, or more than 171,000 people in this province, earn less than the $19.21 an hour needed for a family to meet their needs. The centre is now calling on the province to raise the minimum wage. A girl from Norway House Cree Nation is healing after a brutal attack by a pack of dogs. 9-year-old Heavenly Monias needed stitches from her ear all the way down to her mouth. She also has to come to Winnipeg for therapy to help her arm that was also hurt, and now she can't straighten it. We're going to hear what her grandmother wants to see happen in their community to prevent dog attacks. Those stories and more coming up in our next news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather. Well, that stat Heather led with about people that, can't make ends meet and that they're not making a living wage kind of pairs with yesterday's report. In case you missed this interview yesterday, we're looking at rents across the country. And one of the things that they were looking at is if you make minimum wage, can you actually afford a 2-bedroom place to rent? And across the country, that is becoming more and more scarce. Really interesting report. There was even a map of Winnipeg on the report, and you could go neighborhood to neighborhood to actually see how much you would have to make to be able to afford those spots. So if you missed that, check out the CBC Listen app for yesterday's show, and you can Google and check those maps yourself based on the links. Right now, though, let's get into this hot forecast, Abby.
The sun already making its appearance in most of the regions. The province is going to be seeing a lot of sunshine today. It's going to be hot, and breezy conditions will be felt in most of the regions. We see temperatures climbing all the way to the 30s. Winnipeg currently at 15. Sunshine out there. Anticipate a hot and windy day with lots of sunshine. We warm up to 30. It's going to feel like 32 with a humidex factored in. The normal for this time of the year is supposed to be a high of 15, but we're getting to a high of 30 today. This evening, expect clear skies, and then we'll cool off to 10. In other regions, the skies also making some sunshine. Sunrise at this time, partly cloudy up north, and down south, we're seeing already the sun making its appearance. Brandon's going to warm up to 32. Dauphin would get to 31. Gimley's forecasted to hit 29. Thompson will reach 25. Churchill will peak at 23. Steinbach and Morris would both see highs of 30. But in Winnipeg, it is currently 15 degrees, and we're heading to a high of 30.
I think we should all be off today. They should just say, everyone, you're off.
Say it, Marcy.
I'll just go
walk. Home. Say it. Say it.
Well, we're almost halfway through our workday, and I'll get in trouble with the CBC bosses, so I can't let us off.
Okay.
But what a day we're going to have. All right, let's get into what's happening on the commute, Corey.
I was at a school with no air conditioning, and when it hit 30, it would be a day off, which was awesome.
Really?
Yeah. So we were like always looking, like watching the thermometer, like, let's go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not outing River East in 2024 because I'm so old that this is not relevant anymore. But when I went to that school back in the day, it would be cooking on those second floors, and you couldn't really you would have to go outside, and you know what I mean. It'd be so hot in some of those old buildings. In the fall.
Not too hot out there on the roads right now. The only really major issue is on Kenaston, northbound Kenaston between Corden and Tuxedo. There's a construction zone that's pretty much just up for today. It's blocking the curb lane, so keep left to get around that. It's supposed to end by the evening, but until then, probably going to cause some backups for folks and slow going on northbound Kenaston between Corden and Tuxedo. If you see anything else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, my next guest has wanted to be a nurse since she was a child, inspired, she says, by her mother. And this morning, Tiana Vareja is a nurse. She is one of the 170 nurses who graduated from Red River College last night. That's the largest class since before the pandemic. And Tiana is in studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What does that feel like?
Oh, it's amazing. It's nice to be done. I mean, it's fancy being in the studio too.
Speaking of fancy, why don't we put this up right now for our YouTube viewers and we'll describe it. This is a pin because you're officially handed a pin when you become a nurse. What did it feel like for you to be handed this?
Oh, it was pretty surreal. It's kind of like the final ending moment for everything to close everything up. So I feel grateful and honored to be awarded this pin. It put a lot of hard work into it and just happy to finally be done and have the honor to carry this along with me for the rest of my life.
I love that. You wore it in this morning so people can see it because you allowed us to photograph it here for YouTube. But it's a gold pin and it's a widely understood symbol for nursing and for other healthcare as well. It's called the caduceus. Not sure if I'm saying it right. Could be caduceus. But it is, it's sort of a staff. It's got olive branches around, but the whole meaning behind it is strength and care. And it's a symbol people will recognize. Why did you want to become a nurse? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, overall, like from a young age, my mom was a nurse, so I kind of watched her growing up. I went to like the Bring Your Kid to Work Day and all that stuff, so I got to see what that experience was like. And I'm a very empathetic person, so I've always just wanted to help people, and I felt that nursing would be a good fit for me in that sense. So yeah, I kind of worked in the healthcare fields as I could, becoming a healthcare aide and then an undergrad nurse, and then now a nurse.
You worked in the children's emergency. That's where you did your practicum, I understand.
Yeah, that's correct.
What was it about that department that you enjoy? Tell us a little bit about the experiences that stay with you.
Absolutely. So I decided to start there because I wasn't too sure where I wanted to go originally. I worked in a trauma surgery department as an undergrad nurse for about a year and a half, and I really enjoyed that. But I wanted to try something different, and I was hemming and hawing working with kids versus adults. So I figured I'd give it a go because my mom's best friend and also my Auntie Heather works in Children's Emerge. So she pushed me a little bit there. So I decided to work there. And it was honestly very eye-opening, very such a good learning curve. You get to see a variety of anywhere from a day or two old up to the age of 18. So you never know what's going to walk in the door. So I felt that my critical thinking skills as well as just learning new diseases, diagnoses, anything every day, just really challenges me. And it's been an honor to work there so far, and it's a learning curve every day for sure.
What about the days when you worked in trauma and such? What was that like? Like on the bad days, most of us that aren't in a profession like yours cannot really imagine being in the thick of someone's worst moment.
Yeah, it can definitely be rough. Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows like people think. I feel like it's about having a good support system when times are rough, and also being there for families in their worst moments, right? It's hard for them, but also it can be mentally draining on you as well. So I think having a good support system and having good teamwork within the department as well helps a lot with that.
I'm guessing that I shouldn't guess. I should just ask you. I wonder whether or not you face sort of people asking why you would choose this profession, because we all know that, especially with the pandemic, highlighted the need for nurses, the love for nurses, but then also after the pandemic, just a lot of nurses talking about burnout and about not feeling appreciated. And there's so much work to do in our system right now. It's just a reality. Did anyone question why you chose the profession?
Yes, definitely. My uncle always asked me, I don't know how you do it. I don't understand. But honestly, it's still just like the whole purpose and premise about nursing is to take care of people and those in need in their worstest times. And taking care of the vulnerable population as well as just being there for the others I understand sometimes it's really busy and hectic, and I know burnout is most definitely a thing, and working short definitely sucks, but I still probably wouldn't change it.
What did your mom say to you after the ceremony, given that this runs in your family now?
She gave me a big hug, congratulated me, you did it, congrats. It's been a long road, 4 years. Doesn't sound like long, but she was definitely there for me throughout the whole program, and even before that, doing the prerequisites, trying to get into the program wasn't easy myself either. But yeah, just gave me a big hug, said thank you, also wished me luck for today because it was nice to be here as well.
Did she give you advice about becoming a nurse? Like, did the two of you have talks, or did she sort of, I'm wondering how engaged she was in your process to a profession that she's had.
Overall, I think, she was very supportive of me going into nursing. She, encouraged me, but also said, just make sure you take care of yourself. It's very busy. It's not an easy profession to get into. You're on your feet for 12 hours, so make sure you have a good pair of shoes. But overall, I think she was more encouraging than discouraging about going into the profession.
Do you have plans? Do you know yet if you're going to stay in Manitoba?
Currently, yes. I'm currently working full-time in Children's Emerge. I don't have any plans of leaving. Manitoba is my home. It's where my friends and family are. And I so far have found that there's a lot of job opportunities within Manitoba. So far I'm staying here.
Working in Children's Emerge, can you share a story without obviously naming the kids or the patients for confidentiality, but can you share a story where you were like, I don't know, maybe it was just a moment where we all have these moments. I have it as a journalist where you go, oh, that's why I do this. You know what I mean? Despite all the things that can be challenging in anyone's career, it was like, oh, that's why I do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, some of the basic things, I had examples of children that come in, let's say it's their first anaphylactic reaction to peanuts or whatever it may be. We give them the EpiPen, and we have to do a lot of teaching that comes along with that, right? So depending on their age, it's either more parent-focused, more kid-focused, depending. So I had one patient not too long ago who had a first reaction, and they were older. So I got to do the teaching with the child as well as the parents. And fortunately, the teaching went well. They went home. The next day they had another recurrent reaction, but the parents did get the EpiPen and it went well. So it kind of not opened my eyes, but just gave me a good pat on the back saying, yes, my teaching was good. They gave the EpiPen, they came back, everything went well for the child. And just, it was just nice to see that my teaching worked and they did the right things to help get healthy again, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a daily opportunity to improve and often save someone's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a lot of educating and growing and just helping others.
Congratulations on your grad.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much for coming in the day after grad.
Of course, no problem.
And congratulations to all the 170 nurses that graduated with Tiana, who's been in studio with us this morning. Tiana Verheja just graduated from nursing yesterday, part of that class of 170 who graduated from Red River College. If you want to check out their grad picture, we did get some snapshots of the grads before they received their pins yesterday. And the story's online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Winnipeg's Sheena LeGrand and Heroes in the Making. That is one of 2 new singles that she's sharing off her upcoming album that's called Back to Life. She's returned to making music after a 10-year recording hiatus.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
So let's talk about the call-in today. Today on the program, they're going to be actually building on something that you might have been hearing in the news. In the news, and Heather will have this at 8:30 with more details, but the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives has concerns about the province announcing yesterday the gas tax break will continue until the end of the year. They say only 1 in 5 Manitobans has seen a benefit. Says 1 in 5 Manitobans has seen no benefit from the gas tax holiday. So they're asking about it on Radio Noon today. So it's a conversation that will be a little bit politics and a little bit pocketbook. With that extension till the end of the year, what has the impact been on your family on the gas tax break that you've had? Has it helped your household's bottom line? What's that looked like? Or how do you feel about the gas tax holiday being extended? So weigh in on noon today, live for the conversation between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. The guest to answer questions and walk us through some of the numbers around this will be Gage Hobridge from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. So it's all about the gas tax holiday coming up between 12:30 and 1 on Noon's Call-In. If you can't make it, we always remind you at this time in our program that you can always leave a message for the Noon crew, and that is on their listener line. So the Noon Show listener line is 204-788-3797. 204-788-3797. If you want to leave a message now or have a question about the gas tax. But we'd really love to hear how it's affecting your family for better or for worse and what you think of the extension. So weigh in there. It is now coming up to 8:30. We've had a pretty decent morning on the morning commute. And if you still want to call, it's never too late. So the number is 788-3093. If you do see a problem out there, whether you're walking or biking or driving. And just a reminder about Monday, which is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, that we have special programming planned all across CBC, all platforms. And here in our program, you're going to hear a generational conversation, a father and son, different generations, talking about what truth and what reconciliation mean to them individually and then as a family as well, and where they think we need to go next in Manitoba. So we'll have that rolling out Monday on the National Day for TRC. Right now, it is your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30, 15 degrees in downtown Winnipeg at 17 out at the airport, where the wind is now starting to pick up. And that wind, in addition to the heat, will be the story today. The wind is going to become south 50, gusting to 70 by late this morning. This afternoon, the temperature is going to peak at 30. A grandmother in Norway House Cree Nation says the community isn't doing enough to protect people from dogs. 9-year-old Heavenly Monius was attacked by a pack of dogs last month. She needed stitches from her ear all the way down to her mouth. She also can't straighten one of her arms and needs to travel back and forth to Winnipeg for therapy. Lorraine Trout is Heavenly's grandmother. She says some of the dogs responsible are still roaming free in the community.
Something has to be done to those dogs before they attack someone or kill someone. Pretty soon they're going to kill somebody if they don't do anything about those dogs.
RCMP say there are too many dogs in the community to identify the ones responsible for the attack. Norway House Councillor Dion Clark says a bylaw for a dog registry is coming soon. He says that will ensure owners are held accountable for their dog's actions. A new study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives finds 1 in 4 Manitobans does not make a living wage. The study found close to 25%, or more than 171,000 people in this province, earn less than the $19.21 an hour needed for a family to meet their needs. Close to 44% of those are in their prime working years, and more than 60% have had some kind of post-secondary education. The centre is calling on the province to raise the minimum wage as many Manitobans struggle to pay their bills. Manitoba's advocate for children and youth wants to find out if Johnson Redhead had the services he needed. The autistic nonverbal 6-year-old was found dead in Shamattawa First Nation on Sunday. He had last been seen Wednesday at his school's breakfast program, but never made it to class. We heard yesterday from his former foster parent. Today, Sherry Gott, Manitoba's advocate for children, says the little boy's death is devastating, and her office is gathering information to see if he was getting the appropriate level of care.
There needs to be better communication amongst service providers, and I think more education and training for those who work with young people with complex needs, and ensure that all those wraparound supports are provided for children like Johnson.
Gott says it's too soon to say whether her office will launch an investigation. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says 1 in 5 Manitobans has seen no benefit from the gas tax holiday. The province announced yesterday the gas tax break will continue until the end of the year. The think tank's Molly McCracken says people on fixed incomes don't usually have a vehicle and are saving nothing. She says the $340 million the gas tax holiday is costing the province should be spent on housing, healthcare, and roads.
I am concerned with the persistent extension of this cut because it's an important source of revenue for Manitoba, and it's not being replaced by another source of revenue.
McCracken worries the extended gas tax holiday makes Manitobans more dependent on fossil-fueled vehicles. A new report calls for Winnipeg wheelchair accessible vehicle program to become permanent in the new year. Grant Heather is the City of Winnipeg's manager of Vehicles for Hire. He says the pilot program is making a world of difference for people needing accessible rides.
Transportation is a human right, and this is something, looking at these opportunities to deliver on these type of programs.
Users set up their pickup and drop-off locations and arrange for a ride from the nearest available vehicle through a mobile app, the city's website, or by phone. The Public Works Committee is expected to vote on the proposal to make that program permanent next week. Trading blue and gold for orange. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be outfitted in orange during tomorrow's warm-up before kicking off against Edmonton. It's all part of the team's orange shirt game festivities. Thousands of fans in the sellout crowd are also expected to be wearing orange. Southern Chiefs Organization Community Ambassador Kevin Chief says it is a meaningful initiative.
What we're going to see is a lot of orange with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people standing together in solidarity to honor our survivors. Every year I've been part of this, we see more and more people wearing orange.
And fans will also see a performance by Indigenous dancers and singers at halftime. As for the game itself, a win will clinch a spot in the playoffs for Winnipeg. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, Aaron Broman in our news center this morning. Thank you, guys. As well to our live team, Corey Funk, Kevin Ipatebo, and Abby Adeyemi. Thank you, guys. Corey, the commute.
Northbound Keniston between Corden and Tuxedo. All day until the evening, there's construction in the curb lane. It should be wrapped up by the evening, but it's going to cause some backups for folks heading northbound on Keniston throughout the day.
Well, Abby, we got through the whole show without playing any tunes about the heat, the hot, a beach, but we could have.
It's on its way. A hot and windy day is expected across the province, with highs ranging from 23 in Churchill to 32 in Brandon. It will be sunny, it will be hot, it will be breezy, and most of the areas will see temperatures in the 30s. Winnipeg currently at 15. Strong winds ahead, and that will become breezy later this morning, and that would make the heat get to like 31. So But tonight we're going to cool off.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, enjoy the day, everybody. I'm Marcy Marcusa on behalf of all of us here at CBC's Information Radio. Thanks for listening to our hardworking team of associate producers, as well as our leaders in unit, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Take care, be well, and have a great rest of your day. The Current is coming up next.